Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen is demanding that OP pays for her college. Am I the jerk for not paying for my sister's college when I'm paying for my fiance's? I, 29 male, grew up dirt poor. I'm talking sharing meals and lights being off half the month poor. My parents did their best, but there were 5 of us and money was always tight. I hustled like crazy after high school, community college, then transferring to a good university while working full-time. I graduated with loans, but landed a solid job in tech. Fast forward a decade, and I've got a good income, no debt, and to top it off, I just won $20,000 betting on sports. My fiance, who's 26, is finishing her degree. She's been working too, but with her schedule and the costs of school, I offered to pay for her last 2 semesters so she could focus on graduating without loans. I want us to start our marriage on solid ground, so I don't mind helping her out. Enter my younger sister, who's 21. She's still in school and recently found out that I'm paying for my fiance's tuition. She flipped, saying if I can afford that, I should help her too. She's always been bitter about me getting out and doing well while she and the rest of the family are still struggling. I get it, but here's the thing. I've worked hard to get to where I am, and I feel like my fiance and I are building a future together. My sister and I aren't close, and I feel like she's asking out of entitlement, not need. My parents have now chimed in, saying it's family first and that I'm just abandoning them. I don't think I owe anyone anything, especially since I've already helped out when I could. I paid off their electric bill last winter, etc. I'm torn. I don't want to be a selfish jerk, but I also don't want to set a precedent of being the family ATM. Am I the jerk? Tell them, yes, family first. This is why I'm prioritizing the family my fiance and I are building and the family that we will be creating. My boyfriend erased the whiteboard I had my novel timeline on, plus updates. I've been working on a novel for about a year. I write every day, even if it's just a sentence. 6 months ago, my college switched to smart boards and threw all of their whiteboards in the garbage. I grabbed 2 of them because I have a huge open wall space in my living room. Most of my writing is done on Google Drive, but I use the whiteboards for things like character personalities, names, places, and a general timeline. Basically, all the details I want to keep track of. They've been a great resource. I used to take pictures of my notes so I could have ideas with me, especially when I was writing on my lunch breaks. But I stopped writing during lunch a few months ago because it was burning me out, and my writing quality started to suffer. Plus, my boyfriend helps me write, and working on the novel together has been a great way to connect. It's become something we share, so I haven't felt the need to photograph the boards in a while. The whiteboards are especially helpful because I can see my notes across the room while sitting in my favorite chair. When I got home last night, I discovered that all my work on the boards had been erased. Every single note, idea, and sketch was gone. The whiteboards were full of train-of-thought notes, things I'd jot down as they came to me. Writing by hand is cathartic for me, and some of those notes and sketches weren't anywhere else, not even on Google Drive. While I remembered a lot of what was there, some details are lost forever. What hurts even more is that my boyfriend erased it all. We don't live together, so it wasn't like it happened accidentally while he was cleaning or moving things around. He told me that he felt I'd been focusing too much on my writing and that I didn't have enough time for him. That completely blindsided me because we spend a lot of time together, 5 or 6 nights a week at my place. Our usual dynamic has always been comfortable. I write while he plays video games. We laugh, he helps me with wording, and I Google things to help him with his games. It's something I thought we both enjoyed. This is the first time he's mentioned feeling neglected or unhappy. If he had brought it up, we could have talked about it and found a compromise. Instead, he went nuclear, and I have no idea why. I didn't know what to do. I was so upset that I asked him to leave. He hasn't called, texted, or stopped by since then. That silence is making everything worse. My feelings are all over the place. Rage, sadness, confusion, sorrow, anger. I keep typing out questions to ask him, but I delete them every time. Why did you do it? Are you unhappy with our relationship? What did I do? The worst part is that he hasn't reached out all day. That silence makes me afraid to call him because I don't know what he'll say. I'm terrified he'll tell me he thinks we should just break up, that he doesn't want to be with me when I'm writing, or, just as bad, that he'll ignore my call altogether. This situation feels like a betrayal. Writing isn't just a hobby for me, it's part of who I am. He knows that, and up until now, he's been my biggest supporter. My family loves him. We're so much a part of each other's lives. Just a few weeks ago, my family took him on vacation, and we've spent so much time together watching his nephew or planning our future. We even went to the jewelry store to look at rings recently. I feel heartbroken. He's my muse, my partner in so many ways, and now I'm left wondering what this means for us. As a fellow writer, I'd be livid if I were you. This is the first time he's mentioned it bothers him? If this is true and he jumped straight to sabotage, that's messed up. It's messed up regardless, because I'm sure your boyfriend knows how important this work is to you. Like, for him to not try to talk to you about this after 3 years is mind-boggling. Who does this? Text him the dreaded "we need to talk" message. Ask him when he's available and have him come over to use his words like a grown adult. Also, take his key away or change your locks if you don't want to be that upfront about it. He lost his privileges. To be honest though, in all sincerity, I don't know if this is something I could move past. It comes off as so cruel. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he chose to go into your home when you weren't there because he knew it was wrong. He either knows he messed up or he feels like he's in the right, which is why he hasn't reached out to you. I'm shocked and appalled on your behalf, OP. Update 3 months later. The night I made my post, I went to a friend's house. She ordered a pizza, we got some ice cream, and we shared a bottle of wine. She's a straight shooter, someone who takes a neutral approach and gives solid relationship advice, so I felt comfortable opening up to her about everything. We talked through it all, trying to figure out why he had done something so hurtful. We went over how he and I spent our time together and how much he seemed to care about me. We even discussed how we used to look into each other's eyes like we were the only two people in the room. But as we talked, it became clear there was a lot of hesitation on my part that I hadn't fully acknowledged. I realized I tend to focus on the positives and forgive faults, or even overlook them entirely. I suspect it's some kind of coping mechanism I picked up during my childhood. It also became clear that there were unresolved issues between us. I think he had been holding on to some resentment, but whenever I tried to bring it up, he had dismissed me with, "It's fine, I don't care anymore," only to bring those same issues up again during arguments. I hadn't realized how toxic that pattern was until I said it out loud. That night, I texted him to let him know I'd be coming over the next day to talk. I told him I'd arrive around 11 a.m., and the only thing he texted back was, "Okay." I didn't reply. The next morning, I went to his house as planned, but when I got there, he was still asleep. When I woke him up, he seemed annoyed, like I was inconveniencing him. His reaction took the wind out of my sails. I'd gone there determined to have a serious conversation, but in that moment, I felt so defeated. Normally, when someone upsets me, I cry, but I was too angry and heartbroken even to do that. I left without saying a word, and he didn't follow me. On my way out, I stopped in the kitchen and took my house key from his keyring. When I got home, I collected all his things, put them in a box, and left it on my porch. I texted him to come by and pick them up. His response was, "What? That's fine. I'll come by later and get them." After that, I went out with a few friends. We drank and had some amazing food. For a little while, I felt better. But when I got home, I saw that his things were gone. I was heartbroken all over again. I didn't text him after that, and he didn't text me either. I got absolutely no closure. People always say closure is overrated, but I've had such a hard time moving on without it. It's been 3 months now, and I still cry in the shower sometimes. Even though I was the one who ended the relationship, I still feel confused and heartbroken. I never found out why he did what he did, and I probably never will. I miss his companionship, and I miss the way we used to help each other. I'd love to sit here and say I finished my book, but the truth is, I haven't written much since. I can't get into my characters' heads anymore. There's this feeling of loneliness and grief that I can't shake. It's ironic because those feelings have helped me create a better outline, but I still can't bring myself to write about my characters. I'm not confused anymore. Sometimes I still get sad, especially at night or when I'm out and accidentally make prolonged eye contact with someone. I haven't thought about dating again. I'm still too hurt to even consider it, but every day I feel like I'm moving on a little more. I'm dating a new guy who's pretty upset with me. I met him on a dating app and we've been dating for about 2 weeks. We got a drink on Thursday, went for coffee and a walk the following Sunday, and then to dinner this past Saturday. The night after our very first date, he told me he did a thing. When I asked what it was, he sent a screenshot of deleting his dating apps. I asked why he did that, and he responded, "I'm over it." I didn't think much into this, besides that he was frustrated with dating apps and was hopeful towards our next date. When I told him I went to a bar for a drink one night last week, he texted back to ask, "Are these other dates you're going on?" To which I responded, "Nope, just catching up with a friend tonight." I was abroad the week before our first date, and when I showed him some photos, he said, "Just don't post all the ones of you looking so good. You'll have to fight the guys off with a stick." Which now I'm looking back and finding to be a weird thing to say. He also mentioned a concern with how much I love to travel, as he would always be worried about me. After dinner on Saturday, he asked if I had been going on dates with other people, and I told him that I had declined a few recently. Fast forward to today, he asked where I went last night, and I told him I went out with a guy who had been asking me out for a while, but that I was most excited about seeing him, the guy I had been out on 3 dates with. We didn't have any plans yet for a 4th date, so I had been feeling uncertain about where we stood. He responded back saying, "Yeah, I knew something was up, to be honest. Well, it was nice spending the time I did with you. You were the only one I was talking to, and I respected you enough to not entertain anyone else. I'm not going to deal with trying to keep your attention on me when I had all mine on you." He also said, "I've seen what going out with friends looks like in many different ways, courtesy of my past relationships, and my gut feeling has never been wrong." I asked him if he would be willing to talk through this in person, to which he declined. Although this was only 3 dates, I'm feeling pretty hurt and confused, as I never intended to make him feel disrespected, and I really did like him a lot. I've been burned in the past for rushing into relationships, so I thought that I was doing the right thing by taking it slow and trying to be transparent in his questioning. I wish he would have more explicitly spoken to me about wanting to become exclusive. I asked him if he would give me a few minutes on the phone, and he said, "Not tonight. I'm not making conversation when I'm upset like this." He also said, "I don't need an apology or a dinner. We were talking pretty heavy, and after going out a few times, I told you how I felt and deleted my app. I didn't expect the same, but at least the respect of not entertaining other guys." Any advice? Just let him go. 2 weeks is not worth this drama. Seriously, insert Ace Ventura obsess much quote here. Y'all went on 3 dates, and he thinks that his decision to make it exclusive by doing a thing makes it okay to back you into a corner, force you to make it exclusive, and then control your life? Red flags. Agreed. Apart from his possessive behavior and his projecting his past relationship issues, his communication skills at 30 years old are quite subpar. Doing a thing and then prattling about "I'm over it," and OP is supposed to know that means he likes her a lot and would prefer to be exclusive? Geez, that's a lot. I've dealt with plenty of losers like this myself. He sounds pathetic, controlling, and manipulative. So just because he's desperate, you're supposed to stop going on dates and enjoying yourself? He probably listens to those podcasts with the bald guys who talk about being alpha when the truth is they are just insecure and sad. You should have told him, "Okay, well then, have a nice life," instead of pursuing him to speak about it any further. Him asking where you are all the time after a date or two is a huge red flag. This guy is insecure and is incapable of a relationship with anyone. He also expected you to magically know he was only seeing you and expected you to do the same, which is highly rare after a few dates. Do not chase this guy to get some answers or appease him. Move on and save yourself from likely going through heck to keep his ego up. No one wants that one-sided emotional labor either. I don't know. I thought the guy sounded nice and like he really liked you. "I did a thing" sounds like he was trying to gently introduce the idea of being exclusive with each other and see how you felt about it. Back in my day, if you were going on dates with someone, you stopped dating other people for that time. I guess times are just different now because my daughters do this same thing. They date a few guys at a time, and I know that both of them have had guys get upset in the past when they found out they weren't the only guys they are dating. All I know is I'm glad I was a teenager in the 80s before the dating apps. Am I the jerk for arguing with my parents because they bought new windows and doors for my new home without asking? I, 30 female, got into a huge argument with my parents today because they decided, without consulting me, to replace all the windows and doors in the house I bought. They don't live with me, and they never once asked what I wanted in terms of design or even if I wanted to make these changes in the first place. It's already done. They've ordered everything, and the materials are scheduled to be delivered next week. When I confronted them, they told me I was an ungrateful child who doesn't know anything about life and that I should just keep quiet and accept it since they're paying for it anyway. But I didn't ask them to do this, nor did I want to replace the doors at this moment. I'm currently removing all the floors and bathroom tiles, which is a super messy and dusty process. The old doors were perfect for now because I didn't have to worry about damaging them. When I arrived at the house today, I found all the interior doors tossed into the garbage container. My parents didn't stop there. They even removed all the door handles and hinges because their friend liked the vintage style and wanted them for himself. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. They seem to think that because they can throw money at me, I should just accept whatever they do. While I do feel bad for getting angry since, money-wise, this is a very generous gift, I can't ignore how far they've overstepped. This is my house. I paid for it myself. I didn't ask them for help or permission to make these changes, and they certainly didn't have the right to do it without asking me first. For some additional context, 1. In my family, it's normal for everyone to have keys to each other's houses. My parents and siblings all have keys to mine, just as I have keys to theirs. However, I don't show up unannounced or without permission, nor do my siblings. Only my parents are behaving this way, which makes it all the more frustrating. To clarify, only the interior doors were removed, not the exterior ones. But I should mention again that they threw out every single one of them, hinges and all, just so their friend could keep the hardware. I don't know who their contractors are. My parents refused to give me any information, so I can't call to cancel anything. Apparently, they ordered the windows weeks ago, but only told me now that they'll be delivered next week. I'll be changing the locks on Monday. This was the last straw. No one is currently living in the house. I'm still staying in my apartment while these major renovations are ongoing, which makes it even more baffling that they decided to do this without speaking to me first. And finally, just to be clear, I paid for this house myself. I mentioned that earlier, but some people are assuming otherwise. If they had bought it for me, I might understand their attitude more. But this is my home, and they had no right to interfere the way they did. Their actions have left me feeling disrespected and frustrated. While I appreciate their financial help, the way they went about it is completely unacceptable. I feel stuck between being grateful for the gesture and angry at their complete disregard for my autonomy. Not the jerk. They've undermined you as a homeowner and as an adult. You don't have anything to be grateful for. Send them back when they arrive. Can you rescue the doors and put them back in? Get the doors and windows you actually want in your own time. Not the jerk. It's your home. You bought the house. Call and cancel the order or refuse the delivery and explain that you, as the owner, never authorized the purchase. If your parents have keys, change the locks and set some boundaries. Guilt over something you didn't ask for is a control device they use to hold an obligation to them. Karen is suing someone wrongfully and wants my support. I love my sister dearly and have grown to really appreciate my relationship with her over the years. However, she married a guy who often talks her into doing things that are unnecessary. He's had her work full-time jobs so he can stay home and build a barbecue business for years that never even took off. More recently, my sister was returning home from her job when she was involved in a serious accident. She was hospitalized for a couple of days for observation and missed a week or so of work, but was otherwise okay. The other driver was at fault and assumed all responsibility, and their insurance made a more than generous offer to help my sister get their life back on track. However, her husband, my brother-in-law, decided to get an ambulance-chasing attorney and talked my sister into suing the company that the other driver works for close to $1 million. Keep in mind that there were no substances involved, and the other driver had also just finished her shift at her job, and she was going home as well. My partner and I do not agree with this, nor do we think it's necessary to sue. My sister barely graduated high school, so she was likely never going to make $1 million in her whole life. Additionally, her lawyer told her not to go back to work until the lawsuit is settled. So they've now lost their home, and much of what they own is being repossessed due to non-payment. Their son, my nephew, refuses to come home from college because he's so embarrassed at the situation. My sister wants support for them to continue this lawsuit, and my partner and I are not on board. We think it's cruel to the other driver to not just settle and move on, and it's unethical to sue the other driver's employer for something they had no control over. Am I the jerk for not supporting their frivolous lawsuit? Not the jerk. Stay as far away from this as possible. Your sister and brother-in-law are seeing this as a cash grab. The lawsuit will more than likely be thrown out or dismissed in court. No substances were involved. The other driver and insurance assumed responsibility and they paid out. You can love someone, but not like their choices. This is one of those times. If this is what they're choosing to do, let the consequences of their choices fall where they may. My Karen roommate pulled a robbery prank on me. I, 20 female, live in a very safe city, one of the safest cities in the nation. Due to this and lack of parental regulation as a kid, I never locked my doors. I drive a Wrangler and took the top and doors off and have never had a problem with stealing. I've never locked the doors to my house or apartments. This has never been an issue with my old roommates or family. It's just the way I've developed. My roommate, 19 female, since moving in, has increasingly become more paranoid and anxious. I've known her for years and I've never seen her like this. She thinks there are cameras in her sink. If she gets a bug bite, she assumes she has bugs living in her bed. When she sleeps, she has paralysis where someone comes in to get her. She locks her bedroom door and front door for safety. Knowing this, I've tried to lock the door. However, I don't sometimes. It's a habit I'm trying to break. I came home a week ago. There was crap everywhere. It looked like a mini tornado whirled through my apartment. I went in my room and my TV was gone. My mini boba fridge was gone. All my vintage magazines were gone. So much of my clothes had vanished. It was clear through my eyes that I had been robbed. I sat on my bed and just sat there in shock. On the verge of tears, I called my father, who didn't pick up, and I was left defeated practically. Then I jumped up because I was worried for my roommate's room. She was sitting there waiting for me. She had all my things in there, pranked me to try and teach me a lesson about locking the door. My problem is that she never even talked to me. I had no idea this was an issue with her before. She said I should have assumed that I need to lock the door out of respect for a shared living space. After trivial arguing, I shut up and went mute, grabbed all my stuff to put in my room, and I've completely ignored her since. I'm upset and I'm not over it. I find her thought process alarming and delusional. A mutual friend says that I'm overreacting and being rude to her when she's going through a hard time. As much as I understand that she's having problems, I have received zero empathy or question of my feelings. I don't think I'm a jerk. I think everyone's out of their minds and I need some time away from the crazies. Edit, update. Oh boy, look, I'm just naive. I honestly didn't know. Thank you to all the people who understand that I wasn't trying to be malicious by forgetting to lock the door. Also, no, my roommate is not insane. She's a close friend of mine and we get along well in every other situation. We do most things together. That's my biggest confusion about this, as she's never had a problem with communication before. So I'm not finding another roommate. She's going to the doctor for her symptoms and help is on the way. Also, yes, my instinct was to sit on my bed. When you enter that level of shock, it's hard to think clearly. My perspective at the moment was that she was not home yet because her car wasn't there. I wasn't meaning to be selfish by being sad about my collections and not thinking about my potentially hurt roommate. Edit 2. I forgot to mention that yes, I have talked to her. She said that she thought I would think of it as a silly prank and laugh about it when I saw all my things. I didn't take it that way though. I talked to her and asked why she couldn't just ask me one time to be more aware of locking the door every time, which I know shouldn't have to be addressed, but that it would have been a necessary action before stealing all my things, ripping a few of my posters, making the house a mess, which, by the way, she made me clean up, as her way of telling me to do better. I apologized for my stupidity and naiveness. I don't believe in bad people. This has actually been a problem I've always had. Anyway, she apologized too and will be giving me some compensation to help pay for the damage she gave me in the process of this prank. Everyone sucks here. Lock the door. It doesn't matter how you were raised. The second you started living with others, the game changed. The door is not the problem here. The roommate is having paranoid delusions. She needs to see a psychiatrist pronto. When you think there's a camera monitoring you in the sink, do irrational stuff like this without any warning, and your friends notice your growing paranoia, then you bet that there is a mental problem that needs to be addressed. Psychologist here, this is correct. She needs a mental health evaluation pronto. And lock your door, OP. If you have trouble remembering to do it, then get a lock system installed that will help you remember to lock it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her roommate? Please let us know. OP said they don't believe in bad people. I'm the opposite. I don't believe in good ones. Fire me because I was in the hospital? Okay, you'll be sorry. This happened when I just graduated uni. I had my main job over the weekend, which paid the living, and a side job at a large mobile phone and broadband selling company, basically retail but with phones. The shop was located inside a larger retail store at an island in the middle. And of course, a lot of people didn't know about it and didn't exactly visit our store to buy a contract or upgrade. Instead, they would go to the store on the high street, which was a lot nicer and bigger compared to our island. One important detail about the store: they were really strict about the scheduled hours being followed exactly. The working times usually are 9 till 2000 on the weekdays. Tills have to be shut at 8 p.m., otherwise it causes issues with accounting. Staff members, unless they are in the warehouse, cannot stay past 8:10 to 8:15 due to insurance reasons, and only the managers can lock the store up. Warehouse can stay later, and they have their own exit. However, it cannot be used by those who are not working in the warehouse. When you start and finish, you have to put your times in a special machine which compares them to your rotation. Same when you go out for lunch. If you finish earlier than you are scheduled, then the machine will automatically put it in as unauthorized absence. Also in our island store, you have to have at least 2 employees working during the same hours as per company policy. It was my last day at said store. My manager decided to let go of me because I didn't attend a shift due to being in the hospital and I was still on my probation. I was told that I still have to work the notice period, which was 2 weeks. My manager, we'll call him Dan, had to create rotations 2 weeks in advance as per company policy. He can change the rotations up to a last Friday of the week, meaning he can change the next week rotation on the Friday before, but not after. So Dan scheduled me on my last day on a 1700 to 2100 shift, when my usual shifts are 1600 to 2000. I've asked him if this was correct, both personally and in the team group chat, and he confirmed it. Dan was also the type of those whiny managers who doesn't actually do anything but complain about everything, and doesn't bother to train you or show you the ropes. So I kinda knew he made a mistake, but I decided not to mention it. Cue the malicious compliance. Friday rolls on. I'm hungry, so decided to have a late lunch before my shift starts. I'm putting the order through and notice Dan is trying to call me. I decline. I finish my order to feel that Dan is trying to call me again, alongside with a few texts I received from him. I decide to reply. Dan: "Hey, where are you? You're not at the store, and it's already past 4, and we have one of the higher-ups checking how things are going." Me: "Oh, I'm having lunch. I'm not scheduled until 5 p.m., remember?" "Well, no, you're lying. Your shifts are always 4 till 8. I make sure of it. Get over here. I can't stay as I have to try the food that will be served at my wedding and compose the menu." Me: "Oh, sorry, but I really can't. I've just ordered lunch and I'm waiting for it to be ready, and then I have to eat. I'd asked you if the rotation was correct and you said yes. But in case you don't believe me, I'll send you a screenshot and we'll see you at 5. I did send him a screenshot where I had questioned my times and he confirmed that they were correct. Haven't heard from him until I get back to the store. At the store, I see Dan talking to the higher-up person. Dan notices me first, waves me over as soon as I sign in, and says he really needs to be somewhere else. He just needs to get to his office and get his coat. I nod and have a small talk with the higher-up. Higher-up: "Oh, it was so nice of Dan to cover the start of your shift as you were having a family emergency. He's such a good and caring manager." Me: "Family emergency? Not sure what you're on about, but my shift has just started as per our schedule." The higher-up is confused. He asks to see the schedule, so I gladly show him the pictures Dan has posted in the group chat. Then higher-up turns to me and another member of staff and asks if one of us is a team leader, and if not, then when did we start? After finding out we are not team leaders and have started less than 12 weeks ago, the higher-up gets visibly angry. He stops Dan as he was on his way to leave and tells him he cannot leave the premises as it's against the company's policy to leave employees who haven't been with the company for 12 weeks unattended or to close up, so he must stay. Otherwise, the company insurance is not valid and there will be a hefty fine. Dan has no option but to stay, meaning he was missing the food tasting. He wanted to call his fiancée, however, the higher-up has reminded him no phone calls during the shift and while on the store floor. So Dan couldn't even let his fiancée know, who was texting him non-stop. While higher-up was there and while Dan was forced to do his job, I had a few more conversations with him and brought up all the things Dan failed to provide us training on, alongside with a lack of support and any progression meetings. So by 8 o'clock, higher-up was upset with Dan and was organizing a meeting with him and extra training for him, which I don't think was paid as Dan had to do it outside of work hours. He was also put on a close monitor for at least a month. As everyone was leaving at 8 p.m., I was slowly getting ready. Dan has tried to hurry me up, but I was mainly ignoring him. Dan: "The store needs to be closed before 8:10. Hurry up!" Me: "Oh, but you scheduled me till 9 p.m. today. I cannot leave before that as the system will not allow me to clock out." Dan: "Well, you must leave as insurance does not cover us against theft or damage if there's someone else in the store after 8 p.m. We have to put the alarms on too." Me: "Sorry, but I really don't want to miss on any money. You've scheduled me until 9, so I will work until 9. Dan: "What are you going to do? You need to leave." Me: "I can clean the display models and the island does look like it needs to be vacuumed." The higher-up was having the best time in the world. He was still there enjoying the show since he saw that Dan put me on until 9. At some point, he gets tired of our back and forth and told Dan to cover me till 9 p.m. and stay in the store and then change the hours in the system that I finished at 9 p.m. and I can go home. Dan has tried to argue, but the higher up has pointed out that it was his mistake, and if something happens in the store, he will be the one responsible, as he should have checked the rotations beforehand. Dan has no choice but to follow the orders. From what I've heard, he left around 10 p.m. that day as the system wouldn't allow him to log in. His fiancée also left him a few years later. I do not know the reason why, but she took the house and the dog and saved money since she never married him. I've heard that Dan works as a personal growth coach, but not very successful at it either. Sure, I'll leave the uniform the way it is and wear it at customer events. I used to work as a pastry chef for a catering company in Siberia. It had a very outdated provincial charm, like almost anything in Siberia. But that doesn't mean that my boss didn't sometimes desperately try to up his game and be modern and experimental. At some point, he figured that it would be a good idea to send some chefs to the events and let them plate the food they made in front of the customers for entertainment. He also wanted to incorporate plating gimmicks like beetroot foam or some nitrogen tricks that had to be made on the spot, so he needed us chefs there, not just servers. This meant that he introduced new uniforms that are supposed to be more elegant looking for the customer events. When he got the new uniforms, he gave them out to the chefs who were meant to be going to the events and be seen by customers, and I was one of them. Don't get me wrong, I loved doing catering at weddings and so on because you can witness all the family drama without having to worry about your family or feeling embarrassed for anyone. It's like watching trash TV in real life. But the thing is, I'm very tall, 6'6", and very thin, 120 pounds, and alter my uniforms to make them fit me better. My boss came and gave me the uniform. I asked if I should try it on, and he said no time for that. Just try it on at home and wear it to the event. He said he gave me the biggest size, so it has to fit. I could already see that the chef pants had a thin material and the legs were super wide, but didn't look that long. I asked my boss if I could alter them to fit better, and he got upset and said that it's company property and I can't alter them because someone else has to wear them. I go home and lo and behold, the pants are so wide they will barely stay on my body, but end way above the ankles, and the chef jacket is also too short. I figured that I could use a safety pin to make the elastic waistband a bit more tight and then pull the pants up to my belly button, and then the chef jacket will cover everything, apart from a part of my heavily tattooed lower arms. Okay, maybe I can wrap a towel and no one will notice. And for my legs, maybe I can wear boots that are a bit high, cause since we're not actually really cooking or in the kitchen, I may not have to wear safety shoes. Next day at work, we prepare the van to the location. My boss won't join, so before we go, I tell him about my plan to make the uniform fit me. To be fair, my boss is stressed, cause as always, everything was an uncoordinated mess. He just started yelling at me that safety pins damage the fabric, and it's a safety hazard, and that I have to wear safety shoes, and that this is professional chef attire, and we should all look the same because we appear as a band, and that it's not about my fashion choices. Okay, fine, I'll comply. I go to the event, put on my new uniform in the changing room. The chef jacket sleeves end in the middle of my forearms. It does not cover my belly because the pants sit dangerously low on my hips, because that's the furthest point they can slide down to. Basically, I look like a mixture between a chef and an early 2000s pop star with their low-rise jeans. I looked like I was one wrong move away from accidentally losing my pants. And for my legs, I decided that I can cover my legs by wearing Christmas stockings. Yes, very obnoxious ones with grinning Santa and ornaments and whatnot. They were sticking out from my safety shoes. Boss didn't say anything about the socks, so I guess it's fine. I go out, do the job, but kind of preoccupied with keeping my pants where they meant to be. And guess what? Guests actually complained about how I was dressed. Next day after the event, my boss had surely heard about it. Boss called me over and got mad at me for not dressing how he told me to. I said, but I did. You wanted me to wear the uniform that does not fit at all, and you didn't want me to do anything about it. He said, I want you to figure out a way to wear the uniform without showing your belly and without damaging the uniform. Okay, say no more. What if I just wore one leg of the pants, like a skirt? I can tie the other leg around me and it would cover my belly and not damage the pants. So that's what I did to the next event. Did I have much leg room to move in? No. I walked up and down the display in tiny steps like some cartoon grandma. Of course, my boss wasn't happy with that either. He was so mad at me, but I kept saying, "Give me a solution then," and he just couldn't give me one. He was super annoyed and told me that it's not hard to figure this out. I said, "I'm a chef, not a fashion designer, and if it's not hard to figure out, then give me a solution, because I did what I could, and if you don't want me to do what I can, then tell me what to do about it." He yelled at me that maybe I should know what's appropriate and what isn't, and I shouldn't play dumb. So I said, "Maybe I am actually dumb though," and I left. Just so you know, I was not scared of getting fired because I was confident in the work that I was doing, and my boss would have been insane to fire me over a uniform when we're already understaffed. So it was just satisfying that he had to put up with my stupidity regarding that. But honestly, what could I have done? If it doesn't fit, then it doesn't fit. I ended up being allowed to alter it, but only to make the waistband smaller without cutting it by sewing a loop together. As for the chef jacket, they got me a bigger one, which wasn't the same brand as the others and had a different button color, but they made me change the buttons. Am I the jerk for taking back my husband's gift after he lost me a big promotion? When I, 32 female, was a teenager, I had to go into foster care. The next few years were pretty bad, and I ended up doing some things that I'm not proud of and getting myself into some serious legal trouble. I don't want to go into detail, but I shaped up and managed to avoid completely destroying my life. A few years later, I aged out and reunited with my older brother who helped me get my record sealed. He also helped me get into college, and now I'm working in a field I'm passionate about and a job I love where I met my husband, who's 34. I've been up for a promotion and raise, and it was more or less guaranteed until now. Weekend before last, we had a work party during which my husband got to talking with our CEO, and after having a bit too much to drink, told him about my juvenile history. The next Monday, I got called in by my boss and was told that my promotion would not be happening. I asked why they would do this, and he recounted my history to me in excruciating detail, to the extent that I couldn't even plead ignorance or claim it was untrue. He was sympathetic, but the higher-ups had made it clear that under no circumstances could I be rewarded due to the breach of trust on my part. I said I had no record when I interviewed, and the financial nature of some of my past mistakes. He said it was a leadership responsibility they were not ready to trust me with, and that I could keep my job, but that was it. I was heartbroken, and I felt my husband had betrayed me. We got into a massive fight, and he has apologized profusely and asked me to forgive him because he wasn't in his right mind. Yesterday, I canceled a very large debit transfer which I had promised towards an expensive piece I was getting him as a gift for his timepiece collection. I made the offer when we knew I would be getting promoted, and now that I'm not getting my raise, I just don't want to take that much out of my savings. He hit the roof when he found out because he's now stuck with a huge bill and accused me of being petty and dishonest for continuing to punish him for a mistake he's already apologized for. I told him that he should have thought of that before opening his mouth at the party. He said that while he's sorry I lost the promotion, I have enough savings to do the honorable thing and keep my promise, and that I, of all people, should understand the importance of forgiveness and second chances. I messed up and I paid for it, and I've worked really hard to forgive myself and put my past behind me. But I don't think it's fair that over a decade later, I'm still being punished for something I've already paid for, even if he did so by accident. I don't think I'm the jerk given what he did, but he's currently not speaking to me. I could use some objectivity here. Not the jerk. Please check with an attorney about your boss rescinding your promotion. If your records were sealed, the contents, even if revealed by your spouse, shouldn't be held against you. You may have a legal case. Edit. OP was a teenager, and that could make a difference depending on where they live and the laws there. In the US, most employment is at will, and you're only protected in very specific narrow circumstances like protected class. If they found out you got pregnant as a teenager, and that would be one thing. There is specific protection against discrimination for family status, but something being removed from the public record doesn't make it a legally protected status suddenly. There is no anti-discrimination law as far as I know that protects people who committed crimes in the past. If there was, they'd be allowed to vote. They were not able to find this out on a background check, but now that they know, there's likely no legal protection, just like they can fire you if they find out you frequently cheat on your significant other, or you hate cats, or you watch the Cats movie 8,000 times. They don't need a reason to fire or not promote you, as long as it's not within a very narrow protected sphere. My sister gets to go to an awesome summer camp when I'm stuck going to church camp. My parents go on vacation without me, 14 female, and my sister, who's 15, every summer, and they send us to a sleepaway camp. The problem is, we go to different camps, and my sister's camp sounds awesome, and my camp is pretty mid. My sister has this immune system thing, and she goes to a 2-week camp for free for people with the same condition as hers. She's taking pictures, and the cabins are less crowded. The bathrooms are nicer. They have 3 pools, they have archery, horseback riding, canoeing, hiking, casino nights, astronomy nights. People bring telescopes and they stay up late looking at stars and planets, game nights, and they have actual chefs that cook their food. My parents send me to a church camp because it's cheap. It's usually during one of the weeks my sister is at camp, and they know the directors and priests and volunteers. We're out in the middle of nowhere, literally surrounded by farms, with a pool and a tiny playground that's only fun when you're 7 or 8. They also don't allow technology for campers unless it's school-related. My parents could send an email saying I need my tablet for school, but they say it's good to be away from technology for the week. We do have some fun activities and competitions, but there's a lot of free time where there isn't that much to do except hang out with the other girls. You can't even flirt with any of the guys because there's an 85% chance that you're somehow related. Last summer, my parents were signing us up for camp, and I said either they find a camp like my sister's or I'm not going to go to camp. My parents found one, but it was more than triple the price of church camp, so they said either church camp or I spend the week with my grandma. I went to church camp because grandma's house is even more boring than church camp. All she wants to do is watch Family Feud, The Price is Right, or the news, cook, and talk about when she lived in Palestine. They're already talking about next summer, and I was complaining about having a bad week every summer because they want to go on vacation, and they told me to shut up because they gave me options, and if I find something for under $400, I can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to church camp or grandma's house. They're calling me ungrateful and a brat, so I wanted to know if I was the jerk. Camp professional here, not the jerk. Your sister's camp is likely free of charge, as many camps that cater to kids with conditions are. They operate almost exclusively on endowment, donations, or volunteers. Other than that, camps are expensive. I work for a camp that has all of the activities you mentioned, and on the less expensive side of things, we still clock in at almost $5,000 for a 2-week session. It sounds like your parents have given you an option to go to a camp that's more up your alley, and your choices here are really to take that option next time around or hang out with grandma for a week or go to church camp. At the end of the day, I can see why you're jealous, but it doesn't seem like your parents are able to afford something for you like your sister has access to, and in the grand scheme of things, a less exciting summer camp seems a better option than an immune system disorder. ETA. Many camps, especially those affiliated with the ACA, do offer tuition assistance. If you look a little deeper than the advertised price, you might get lucky. ETA. While I wholly understand the if the parents can afford a vacation, they can send their daughter to a better camp line of thought, it's an uneducated one. Camps that she is describing are typically far more expensive than a 1-week vacation for 2. $5,000 for a 2-week stay? That's $357 a day. Karen loses it on a police officer over a 12-pack of water bottles. For some context, I'm a police officer, and in my country, our officers don't really have the same kit that you see in TV shows. I'm part of a specialty unit that is basically a quick response team for situations that could turn bad or just need specialty officers. We have the same kit as the stereotypical American officer, the vest, the AR, the less than lethal weapons, and that sort of jazz. It does vary from officer to officer, so it's safe to assume that I stand out quite a bit. My country also has very strict laws, so it's not common to see people walking down the street with a concealed carry or anything like that. And from here on out, I'm going to use American terminology just to make it easier for everyone to understand. Now on to the story. Myself and a few other officers were dispatched to a call involving a male having a PTSD episode and was threatening to hurt anyone that came near his house. We ended up staying there for a good few hours trying to help the man calm down and get him the help that he needed, which thankfully we managed to do and no one was harmed. So obviously, after I went to that call, I decided to stop at the shops and get something to have as a quick meal to get some energy and calories in me. As I was going down the aisles, I noticed an elderly couple struggling to pick up some 12 packs of water bottles, so I helped them load their bottles into the trolley. Perfectly harmless, right? What could go wrong? That's when a wild Karen appears.
Excuse me.
Me, thinking she has a question about something involving policing. Yes, ma'am? Karen,
I need you to carry these to my car.
she was pointing to the packs of water. Me, I'm sorry, ma'am, but as you can clearly see, I'm a police officer. I can't be carrying things around for you because I need to be ready to drop everything in a moment's notice. I'm more than happy to help you load them into your cart and help you find an employee, but unfortunately, at the moment, that's the best I can do for you. Karen scoffs.
You aren't a police officer. You're just some wannabe airsofter.
I just want to reference here that I'm in my full kit. Me. No, I very much am a real police officer. I'm part of a specialty unit. That's why I don't wear the uniform you normally see officers wearing. If you wish, I can provide you with my ID and number. Karen.
It's illegal to pretend to be a cop. I'm calling the police and you're gonna get arrested.
She proceeds to call the non-emergency number and tells the dispatcher about me. Me. Karen, you're completely in your right to report me and verify I actually am one. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue shopping. Call for a police impersonator that's armed comes over the radio, and I tell dispatch it's me, but to still send regular patrol officers over. Karen.
You aren't going anywhere, jerk.
Proceeds to kick the back of my knee, making my leg buckle and me fall over. Me. That's it, Karen. You're under arrest for assault. Karen proceeds to kick and scream, and all the while I handcuff her, I take her out of the store, and a few store employees are following, trying to stop a crowd from forming. Just as I pulled Karen out of the store to remove her from the public, 2 patrol officers pull up. One was a supervisor. They asked me why she's in cuffs, so I explained the story, and the supervisor questioned Karen about what happened. She ended up saying that I yelled at her and attacked her, so she kicked my knee to get away from me. Supervisor obviously very quickly took my sidearm and put me into the back of his car. Standard procedure just to cover the department. And took Karen out of her cuffs, and the supervisor apologized profusely and asked if she wanted to press charges. She obviously very happily replied with a yes. So supervisor, Karen, she was very hesitant and insisted she must be going and they can just email her. Store manager and another officer all went into the security room to watch the CCTV footage. The footage showed us talking, her pulling the phone out, me walking away, and then her kicking my leg. Karen was instantly handcuffed and taken back to the station to do all of the booking and all that fun stuff. Here, most of what I know is from talking to other officers, as I was immediately placed on unpaid suspension because I was being investigated for assault. It turns out Karen had a warrant for theft, and once the officers found out, she kicked them a few times and was eventually placed in a cell. On the day of the court hearing, she was found guilty of assault, making a false police report and wasting police resources. Her theft charges were dropped as a plea deal. She got sentenced 1 year jail time and was forced to take anger management classes. Once I was cleared of any wrongdoing, I sued her for lost wages, about 6 months of suspension, and defamation of character because she ended up getting my face published on basically every bit of local news during the whole investigation, and I was labeled as a power-hungry jerk. That ain't a fun reputation to have. So in the end of it, because Karen was too lazy to load a 12-pack of water into her own car, she was sent to jail for a year, lost her job, lost her boyfriend, basically only has visitation rights for her kids. Father used the assault case to get custody of them, and lost a good chunk of change. My new Karen neighbor has been using me as a free babysitter, and I never even knew. I, 23 male, live within 1 mile of 4 elementary schools, so there are tons of kids around here. I have a garden, so I'm outside a lot, and most of the neighborhood kids end up at my lawn at some point in the day. For the most part, it doesn't bother me. They're all great kids, and they have tons of questions about plants, gardening, composting, all that good stuff. I recently finished my PhD in plant systematics, so I honestly do enjoy teaching them about plants and seeing them get excited to learn about it. Also, it is a bit refreshing to have kids running around and screaming outside rather than sitting in front of screens. Recently, an issue has come up though. I was out gardening and the kids came by as usual. I finished up earlier than usual and I went inside. About an hour later, someone is literally banging on my front door. It's my neighbor, and after I open it, she instantly starts screaming about how I left her kids alone out there for an hour. And I was at first a bit confused. After some more discussion, I learned that she lets her kids outside every day and tells them to hang out with me while she goes and does whatever. Eventually, I just apologized and I closed the door. After some thinking though, I really don't think I'm in the wrong. I'm not okay with watching someone's kids. First, I didn't even know I was watching them. What if someone had gotten hurt? I wouldn't even know what to do. Second, I feel like this is neglect. She doesn't know me anywhere near well enough to have me babysit for her while she leaves. Lastly, childcare is expensive for a reason. I've been watching these kids for free? So I went and knocked on her door. Maybe I was a bit harsh, but I told her that I'm not a babysitter and I will no longer allow her kids near my house or me. I told her I was extremely uncomfortable by this situation, and if she leaves them outside without someone watching them again, I will call the authorities. I would not like to do that at all. She went off saying she can't afford childcare and I'm a jerk to not just watch her kids when she needs help. I've now gone to the rest of my neighbors and told them that I do not want any of their kids in my yard, and I explained the whole situation. Most were very understanding and they watched their own kids. Today, one boy came by and I asked him to leave and he said okay, but he was clearly holding back tears and now I'm feeling like a jerk. I'm needing some outside opinion. Am I the jerk for this? How do I even handle this situation? Not the jerk. As you say, this woman would be the first to blame you if something did happen to her kids. And since she never officially came over and said, "Hey, I've just got to run some errands. Can you watch my kids for 15 minutes?" They were never officially in your care. I'd still call the authorities and voice concerns if I were you. She clearly isn't looking after her kids that well if she just offloads them to anyone randomly. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the neighbor? Please let us know.
Talk about an entitled parent.
Make my coworkers cry? I'll help karma turn your life upside down. Backstory. I worked at this hotel for over 2 years and was one of 2 people left that went through the training when our hotel changed hotel franchises. During this training, we were told about certain rules the company had. Cast. We've got the manager. Front desk manager. He only was here for 4 to 6 months at this point. We've got me. I'm a nice guy, unless you are a bully or entitled person. A few others I will mention as we go through. Story. One afternoon, I was scheduled to work second shift, 3 to 11. I walked in, and both AM front desk coworkers looked like they had been massively crying as their makeup was all smeared. My manager, looking quite upset. I ask, "What's wrong?" Manager, "We have a major jerk as a guest. This guy is the highest level on the rewards for the hotel chain. He's very demanding and wants free upgrades, free this and that, and he screams anytime he has an interaction with the staff. This guy has made every department call me complaining about him. Now this guy just came to the desk and screamed at these 2 coworkers until they were both crying. These 2 ladies were fresh high school graduates and were very sweet and innocent people. They loved helping people and didn't deserve this treatment." As he's explaining this, I look up this guy's room details. Once my manager finishes explaining everything this guy had done, I see this guy's info and I had a smile from ear to ear. I reply, "Didn't you see he's an employee of a different hotel?" Manager, "Yes, but so what?" I replied, "First off, while you travel as an employee, you're required to behave and be respectful. It's in the fine print on the discount form." I grabbed his form and showed it to the manager. Failure to be respectful can lead to having your employee discount suspended or permanently revoked, and even get you terminated. You need to call this guy's hotel and ask for the GM, then explain to him who you are and what this guy is doing. I look up the hotel phone number and call the hotel and then hand my manager the phone. Manager, after his call ends with the GM, has an evil and satisfying smile on his face. His GM is steaming mad after I described all the stuff this guy's done. Main switchboard phone rings. I answered, "Hello, thank you for calling our hotel. How may I direct your call?" Caller, "I want to speak to entitled jerk's room, please." I replied, "Absolutely, sir. Have a nice day." Transfer the call and looked at my manager and saying with a sarcastic tone, "Someone wanted to talk to entitled jerk. Gee, I wonder who that could be." Manager continues after he stopped laughing. The GM gave me his personal cell phone number and said if I have any more issues at all to call him immediately. I'm leaving the phone number next to the switchboard if you need it to call him. I told manager, "Your revenge is done. Now for my revenge." Manager wide-eyed. "Oh crap, what are you going to do?" Me smiling a very evil smile. "You'll see." I pick up the phone to make a call. "Hello, Hotel Rewards customer service." "Yes, I would like to report someone using rewards account while using employee discount on his stay." Customer service, "He can't do that." I replied, "I know, I'm calling to report him." I gave her the guest reservation number and rewards member number. I continued, I bet anything if you dig through this guy's history, you'll find all his stays are probably at employee discount. Customer service. I'm starting a ticket to have this guy's account investigated. I replied, thank you. Then hang up the phone. The manager watched as I then removed his rewards number from his stay. My manager had a huge grin on his face. That was awesome. I explained, oh, I'm not quite finished with him yet. It's time to go spread the news to all departments he is no longer a rewards member. I made a new key for his room without concierge access. I walked around every department. As I explained while I was stopping by, everyone had the exact same reaction as I mentioned the guy's name. Oh God, now what about this jerk? I finished explaining how he was no longer a rewards member, and if he gives anyone issues to call the front desk immediately, and his GM already probably tore him a new one just a minute ago. Everyone was so happy at this news. I finally went to the concierge room and used the guest's new key to void his current key. Then I walked into the room and explained the information to the evening concierge. She cringed at the mention of his name, after explaining she would not have to deal with him again, and she asked to leave the morning person a note about this guy not allowed in the concierge room anymore. She was very happy. While I was gone, evidently, the manager explained what we did to the 2 a.m. front desk ladies. The minute I got back to the desk, both my front desk coworkers all came up to me and gave me a huge hug and thanked me so many times. Manager to me after the other coworkers went home. Do me a huge favor, please. I replied, sure, what's up? Manager, if I ever upset you, please come tell me so I can fix the issue. Later that night, entitled jerk comes to the desk, hat in hand, politely saying his key doesn't work. I replied, oh, so sorry about that. Let me make you a new key. And my best fake smile I can muster. Aftermath. Next day, I check his rewards account and it's now suspended. Check back next week. Sorry, account number not found. Am I the jerk for banning my sister-in-law's son from my house until she finds out what's wrong with him? I'm 33, female. My husband and I host all of our family gatherings. We have a 5-year-old daughter. This story also concerns my brother, who's 37, and his girlfriend, Stacy, who's also 37. Stacy has a son, George, who's 7, from a previous relationship. George has severe behavioral problems that became evident from the first time we met him. He's hyperactive, destructive, belligerent, nasty, and his mother can't manage him. Whenever his mother brings him to family events, we're all on high alert. He has to be watched constantly, especially around any of the other kids or animals. We've not had an event with him present where at least one thing hasn't ended up broken. He will break plates, throw food, throw tantrums, screaming and flopping around on the floor, and more. It's exhausting to have him around, and frankly, the kid freaks me out. We've all kept out of it because he's not our kid, but he's not even my brother's kid, so it's certainly not our place. But our whole family knows there is something not right with him. Earlier this year, the family all visited us at our vacation home, and George was his usual self. The final straw was him using language he shouldn't have been and saying horrible things when he was talking to my daughter. My husband stepped in, and a crying George played the victim to his mother, and this caused an argument between my husband and me, and my brother and Stacy. I told Stacy we had absolutely had enough, and that her child of the corn would not be allowed back in my house until she found out what was wrong with him and had a plan to manage his behavior going forward. At the time, everyone supported our decision because they all said it was high time Stacy recognized that George's behavior was not normal. Boys will be boys' behavior. We haven't seen them since summer. About a week ago, we were all locking in plans for Christmas, which we planned to spend at a ski resort. Stacy texted me to confirm about plans, and I asked her what she had done about George. She said nothing official, but his behavior had been getting better. I told her nothing except some kind of diagnosis from a medical professional and a documented plan to mitigate his behavior would get him back in my house. Stacy has since been complaining to everyone that I'm discriminating against her kid and that his behavior has improved. She's also accused me of thinking she's a bad mother because she works and of disliking her and George because he's not my brother's kid. None of that is true. Everyone is saying I should relent and let them come on the understanding that she is responsible for any damages and will leave if he acts up. I don't want to bend on this because I don't want a drama-filled Christmas or to have to be the bad guy and kick them out around the holidays with no other plans. Am I the jerk? Edit. People were asking about the resort, so to clarify, We own a chalet in the resort, and the whole family will be staying at our chalet over the Christmas holidays. Not the jerk. I personally would cancel on hosting the whole family at the resort this Christmas, since everyone is pushing you to cave to Stacy. Make it a private holiday for you, your husband, and your daughter. Let your extended family make their own holiday plans and even host George in their homes. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Don't worry, OP. I can't stand children of the corn either.
Am I the jerk for dog-proofing my house but not child-proofing it? I will admit, this all seems weird to me. Important things to note. I have a dog that's deathly allergic to chicken, so we don't keep chicken in the house. Additionally, while my significant other and I don't have kids, a lot of my family do, and some of them are vegetarian. Our go-to meals for the kids in the family are less chicken nuggets and ketchup and more pancakes or butter noodles. Also, I have a sister-in-law who goes anaphylactic with either nuts or legumes. Moving on. I had my brother, sister-in-law, and niece over at my house. Sister-in-law invited some of her friends, which was just lovely. Her friends brought their tiny kids. All 4 tiny tots were under 2 years old. All parents were warned that I have a very sweet pup and that the house is safe for dogs, but they need to watch their kids, who are all under the age of 2. Immediate chaos.
Why don't you have gates for the stairs?
My significant other, dog, and I know how to use the stairs. We don't need gates.
That's so dangerous. Why don't you have doorknob things? My toddler can open the door.
My significant other, my dog, and I don't need those. Again, not child-proofed. The list continued, and my significant other left with the pup to avoid having to deal as my brother tried to help me with all of this. One of the moms announces that her daughter needs lunch and looks at me expectantly. I look around as I was not planning on feeding this many people, then decided, oh well, pancakes it is. Kids love them, parents can't complain about a free meal. I tell the mom this. She says pancakes are breakfast food, her kid needs protein, and that her toddler needs chicken nuggets. We don't have that, try again.
What do you mean you don't have chicken nuggets?
We don't keep chicken in the house. Dog's allergic, and my significant other sucks at not sharing food with a pup. So no chicken, try again.
But my baby will starve.
I go into the kitchen with my brother and start making pancakes. The one mother follows me, starts going through my kitchen looking for something, opens up the dog's medicine cabinet and sees the giant tub of peanut butter and screams,
Are you trying to hurt your sister-in-law?
That's for the dog.
Sister-in-law can't eat peanuts.
Yes, which is why everything has been sanitized and the peanut butter has been put away. Did the crazy mom stop? No, she tore into me about how a dog shouldn't be prioritized over a mother, that a dog is an animal and my sister-in-law is a mother who could get hurt. I guess the fact that my dog lives here and sister-in-law doesn't is a moot point. But that was when I decided that the pancakes were unnecessary and everyone needed to leave. I thought I was in the right, but my sister-in-law texted me that it's weird that I prioritize my dog and refuse to feed hungry kids. I just didn't want to listen to them complain about how I'm a crappy host and a crappy person anymore. Update. I put this in the comments, but we'll add it here. Part of the problem is that I am a nanny. Part of the problem is that I volunteer with a lot of different groups that help kids and their families. As such, I have a ton of experience not just watching kids, but also tons of stuff in my office that I give to kids and families. Except the stuff isn't mine. It's the nonprofits, and I just hold on to it until we hold the events where we give it out to the families. I spoke to my brother. Sister-in-law expected that her and her friends could come over, get free childcare for as long as they wanted, and a ton of free stuff. So that led to a call with my sister-in-law and how none of that would ever happen. Ever. I was told I need to care more about my family and less about other people. So, yay. Long story short, sister-in-law is still upset at me for making her look bad in front of her friends, and I'm upset that she thought any of that would happen, and my brother is stuck in the middle. Good times. Not the jerk. This entitlement is shocking. You don't have kids. There's no need to kid-proof your house. Also, is chicken nuggets a food essential in the US? 'Cause darn, I don't know anyone who commonly always has chicken nuggets at home.
Nuggies are love, nuggies are life.
Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you tolerate these people in your home?
Bruh, I would have gone off on all of them. You ain't gonna come into my house and treat me like that.
Am I the jerk for not taking the next elevator when a mom with 7 kids demanded it from me? A neighbor of mine has 7 kids and they're all under the age of 9. I've seen her many times, and she always demands people take the next elevator because she has kids who need to get home. She has physically shoved into the elevators and forced people out, including my elderly father. I was on my way home from work. I take public transit, and she was on the bus with all her kids. They were screaming and running up and down the aisle, basically making such a scene that the driver asked her to have the kids sit down before they get hurt. Sure enough, one of the kids was spinning around one of the poles and bumped her head as we were going over the train tracks near my place and started screaming. She looked like she was physically okay, not even a red mark, but she screeched the rest of the ride to the building. I was first in the building and hit the elevator button. She came in with her double stroller and her gaggle of kids running around her as I stepped into the elevator and held the door for her. She told me that I would have to get out and wait for the next one. I said, "Excuse me?" She heavily sighed at me and said,
My stroller won't fit with you in here. Get out and take the next one.
I refused, saying I would make myself as tiny as I could, but I was staying in the elevator. She became irate, pointed at her kids and said,
Do you see what I'm dealing with here?
I said, I understood that it's overwhelming, but I had worked a long day and I needed to get home. I said, in or out, because I'm going now. She pulled her stroller and kids out, calling me a jerk the entire time. A few people were waiting behind her and they got in with me. 2 began thanking me for standing up to her because she does this all the time, but the other one called me a jerk for not being sympathetic to her situation. I don't think people should have to make constant accommodations for people just because they have kids, especially when they're rude and demanding. But am I the jerk here? Edit. People are concerned with the way that this woman has treated my father. She didn't actually touch him. He was in the elevator and she pushed her stroller in, waved her arms, and yelled at him to get out several times. Because he's hearing impaired, he was very confused and only knew that she was yelling at him, and he got off the elevator. Had she put her hands on him, charges would have been filed. She has 7 kids and they're all under the age of 9? Not the jerk. There is no chance I need to read any further. Sir, let me finish. So I work tech support for helping some tax accountants. Basically, I do the general tech stuff, like printers not working, phones not ringing, internet or computers freezing, etc. But I don't do the tax stuff as I don't know taxes, and we have a separate department for that. Things like, the program is calculating my income tax wrong is not me. Even if the tax pro feels 100% sure they did everything right, and it's for sure the computer having an error, we still need them to swing by the support team who does tax stuff to get their stamp of approval that it is a technical issue before we assist. Now I'm ad-libbing nonsense tax jargon, so the details are wrong, but it's basically how the call sounded to me. So I get a call and I answer. Me. Hello, thank you for contact her. Yeah, hi, so listen, I've got a 1040G DX9 error on the I-99G form, but it's calculating Louisiana tax instead of Ohio, and the diagnostic errors say me. Sorry, ma'am. I think you... Her. Sir, please let me finish. So the diagnostic error says that Louisiana cannot claim that many dependents without an F14G, but I have the F14G attached, but it thinks it's an F15G, even though the claims DX4 has it under the second page of the 14% fiduciary claim and... Me. Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you, but her. Sir, please, I'm in a hurry here. Please don't interrupt. She then proceeded to talk about more tax jargon for what felt like 5 straight minutes. Then, when she was finally done, I just waited silently. Neither of us say anything. Her. Okay, I'm done. What do I need to do? Me. You need to call the correct department, because there's a problem with the tax software, and I'm your general tech guy for printers and computer stuff. Her. What? So I have to repeat all that again? Why didn't you stop me? Me. I tried twice. You yelled at me not to interrupt. Twice. So I didn't. She just huffed loudly and hung up. Best call ever. Am I the jerk for canceling the entire trip after finding out that my husband hid my daughter's passport? My husband and I have been together for 3 years. He has 3 kids from his previous relationship, and I have 1. She's the oldest, she's 17. He's a dedicated man, puts God first, and loves everyone. My husband always complains that my daughter doesn't spend time with her step-siblings or him, but she has reasons for that, and that is school, health issues, and work. She does her best to spend as much time with them as she can, but she, on the other hand, complains that her stepdad tells her to basically take on the role of a babysitter whenever she's with her step-siblings. My husband denied that, and said that my daughter was making up excuses to not have to spend time with his kids. For this issue, I figured that a family trip is what the family needs to get together and spend more time around each other. My husband liked the idea, but said that his kids are now uncomfortable around my daughter because of her attitude, and suggested that we let her stay home and have the house all to herself since that's what she's always wanted. I told him it's best that we all go. He kept complaining until I snapped and I told him to stop. I booked for and paid for the whole family. However, my daughter told me she couldn't find her passport. We turned the house upside down looking for it, but couldn't find it. My husband said maybe it was a sign from God that we should let her stay home so the trip wouldn't turn into a disaster. I ignored the comment, but later while I was cleaning his office, I found the passport tucked away in the third drawer under a ton of papers. I was floored by this. I confronted him with it, and he swore he had no idea why or how the passport got there. I checked the upstairs camera and saw him enter into a room. That was it for me. I screamed my head off at him, then canceled the whole trip completely. He started arguing, saying that I overreacted and that he didn't want his kids to be miserable on the trip, and he's willing to apologize to my daughter if and when I reconsider my decision regarding the cancellation of the trip, because my stepkids will be devastated. But I said it was final and that it was done. He became cold and distant and said that he wants to take some time to do some fasting and get guidance from God about how he should deal with the disrespect and control I had displayed lately. Am I the jerk for canceling it altogether? Where'd you find this guy? We don't work here, but what the heck? I'll take your order. In my youth, my family was rather poor, lower middle class. My dad, who could not read or write, worked graveyard shift at a creamery. My mother, a housewife, was very active in PTA and other community activities. My dad's job paid the bills and put staple foods on the table, but left no room for comfort expenses. As soon as I was old enough, I got a paper route. The monthly funds went towards padding our family budget. One simple joy we took a pleasure in was once a month, we would splurge on a quiet salad and pizza dinner at the local Pizza Hut. This story takes place 1987 to 1988. I was about 14 at the time. We arrived one Sunday afternoon at the local pizza parlor. We went in, we sat down at our regular table, and we waited for the waitress to come take our order. We talked, we waited. We cracked jokes and waited some more. We started to realize something was not quite right after 10 to 15 minutes. We had heard the phone ring a few times, but other than that, there was none of the usual sounds of bustling workers in the kitchen area. Curious, I slid out of the bench and approached the cashier's counter. Looking around in the back area, I could not see a living soul. "Hello," I called out. Nothing. "Anybody back there?" Again, no response. Now I was feeling that distinct, edgy feeling one gets while watching a horror movie. I returned to my parents and informed them what I had discovered, or should I say, lack of discovery. "Check the restrooms," my dad suggested. My mom agreed. She checked the women's room while Dad checked the men's room. No one. Now we were all very concerned and more than a little frightened. We had heard on TV and in newspaper stories how sometimes a robbery goes bad and it was only discovered later on. "Call the police?" Mom suggested, pointing at the phone on the wall, which chose that very moment to ring out loud, making all of us jump in fright. "The freezer?" I said over the ringing phone. "What?" Mom asked. "The freezer. In horror movies, that's where the bodies are always at, right?" "I'll look," I said. "The heck you will," my mom responded with authority. "Your father will check it out." My beloved father, the man I admired most in the world, pointed at me and said, "He runs faster." In the end, I did indeed go behind the counter by the simple fact my parents were too busy arguing over who would go check in the back to notice me walking off. First, I armed myself with an impressively large and surprisingly sharp round pizza cutter sitting on a counter. Next, I checked the entirety of the back area. The back door was locked from the inside. Then I checked the manager's office cubicle. Finally, I approached the freezer. I knew what I was going to find. I've seen this scene in plenty of movies. By this point, both my parents noticed my absence and had joined me, staring at the freezer door with morbid anticipation. I grabbed the handle, pulled, and threw the door open, and sure enough, there staring back at us was boxes of pizza-making supplies. But no bodies? What? I was, truth to tell, very disappointed. Nobody, nothing, no workers. We were the only ones in the pizza parlor. "Hello," came a call from the front. I'm pretty sure if a little more effort had been put into the jump scare, we would have hit our heads on the ceiling. Quickly, we approached the front. I recall my heart racing a mile, thinking an employee had arrived, only to find a middle-aged gentleman waiting along with his wife by the "wait to be seated" sign. "Oh, there you are," he said. "We would like a table for two." "I'm sorry, sir," my mother replied. "We don't work here." "Okay, but we want a table for two." "There is nobody here. We checked," Mom explained. "Yes, I can see the place is empty. So can we have a table in the back?" the man pressed. "We don't work here. As far as we can tell, there is nobody here that's supposed to be here," Mom further elaborated. "So where can we sit?" "Oh, just find a place to park your butts. The place is empty," my dad butted in. My father, bluntly, honest, and always absurdly practical. "Honey, just call the police. Let them know what we found." With that, my dad scuttled off to the salad bar. Let it be known, my father was never one to let an opportunity for a meal go to waste. It took over an hour for a police officer to arrive. The reason it took so long, as the officer would explain later, was that dispatch had downgraded our call to non-emergency status. During the wait, however, we had to deal with a few things. "Waiter, we would like our menus, please." My dad, being the helpful sort with a decidedly odd sense of humor, gave the couple menus. "One sweet tea and one unsweet with lemon, please." I was already hitting the fountain drink machine. I was there, it was there, and Mom had found the coffee supplies, so what the heck, I brought them their drinks. "We would like 2 dinner salads and a large pepperoni pizza." Dad pointed to the plates by the salad bar and told them, "Might be a few minutes on the pizza. Gotta wait for an employee to show up first, but go ahead and eat as much salad as you want." Then one of the nearby churches let out.
Hello? There are 4 of us.
Hi, we've got 2 more coming."
"I tried calling several times. Can I please get 2 large pizzas to go?"
By the time the police officer arrived, my mom and I were effectively running the parlor along with a guy who came in from the church with his family. He said he once worked at the other Pizza Hut in town while in college. Mom took orders. I delivered drinks and food. I got tips. And the young man made the pizzas. My dad? He was busy eating and chatting with the customers. As for people paying for their food, neither my father or I could calculate our way past 10 fingers and 10 toes. Mom, on the other hand, was one of those super annoying people of her generation that could calculate a whole string of numbers in her head faster than you could type on a digital calculating machine. Really, really annoying. So she figured up the amount, including tax, and had them pay with a check. The checks were slid under the cash register. The register itself we did not even try and touch. When the officer arrived, we were quite happy to recognize him as one of the officers my dad was friends with. Back then, police officers on the night shift could come by the creamery my dad worked at and get free ice cream from the employees' break room. Dad would often take time to shoot the breeze with them for a few minutes. Officer Shield, as I will call him, immediately recognized my dad and asked him what was going on. My dad explained the situation and I butted in, sounding a little disappointed, I'm sure, that we didn't find anyone in the freezer. Officer Shield first went to the register, opened it, and confirmed that there was still cash in the till box, then walked around the inside and outside of the building. No signs whatsoever of any kind of a disturbance. He called in and waited for orders from higher up. In the meantime, never let it be said a police officer is willing to pass up an opportunity for free food. 20 to 30 minutes later? I can't recall, but eventually he got a call back telling him to lock up the place. They were trying to contact the owner of that franchise. But problem, he couldn't find the keys to the parlor, and the main doors had to be locked from either the outside with a key or the doors locked from the inside with the latch, then exit out the back door, which required a key to lock the bolt from outside. Officer Shield called that fact back in. A few minutes later, the lead officer on shift arrived to evaluate the situation. What did he find? A pizza parlor half full of customers happily chowing down on pizza. When he asked, understandably confused, why Officer Shield called in his report saying there was no employees on the premises when clearly customers were being served, at which point I oh so happily piped in while handing off a pizza to go to a waiting customer. "Oh, we don't work here. We're just being helpful." So eventually the police managed to contact the owner after a couple of hours. The owner contacted the manager and the manager came storming in. Lots of anger and confusion. The manager, in a fluster, tried to accuse my parents and I of theft of company property, but Officer Shield would have none of that and pointed out the checks, the order slips,
and the list of anything we used. Then he pointed out the fact that we could have left the place empty and thieves could have ransacked the parlor. She backed down and focused on contacting the workers that were supposed to be on duty. Turns out the assistant manager had found out that very morning her boyfriend was having an affair. She had then gone on a tirade, taking out her anger on her male employees. They chose not to take it and walked out. The assistant manager then just decided to up and quit, leaving the shop wide open. As for my parents and I, we were informed by Officer Shield very firmly that should we, for whatever reason, find ourselves in such a situation again, it would be far more helpful if we refrained from being helpful. And yes, we did pay for our food and drinks, but we still got banned for life from that parlor. My spoiled daughter keeps taking the car without permission, so I put a tracker on it. I have a daughter who is 15 years old and recently got her instruction/learner's permit after she took a summer driver's ed course and passed the written exam. In my state, the learner's permit has a driving restriction that requires the driver to have a licensed adult who's 21 or older in the front passenger seat with them at all times, no exceptions. She has to hold the learner's permit for at least 1 year before she can move up to a restricted license at 16 years old. We bought her a car during the summer so that she can have a familiar car to practice in with us while having her learner's permit. This will be the same car she will use once she gets her license. The problem is that she's been driving this car by herself without our permission or even informing us. Sometimes we leave our daughter home alone for a few hours so that we can go to the store or on a date, etc. And she's been secretly driving when we're not home. She has her own key and we have the spare. I found out after noticing the discrepancy in the miles in her car. We scolded her and told her that it was illegal for her to drive on her own, and we started outlining the tires with chalk so that we would know if she used the car or not. However, the chalk does not automatically stop her from taking the car out. It only lets us know afterwards if she did. So she still kept using the car and would shrug us off afterwards. I don't want her breaking the law, and I'm terrified of her driving on her own with so little experience, although she seems to be doing fine as the car has no damage. So I secretly installed a GPS tracking device in the car. We then secretly pretended to leave and waited until we noticed that the car's location changed. I immediately called my daughter and yelled at her, telling her that she needed to come home now. She came back and we got into a huge fight, screaming, and it ended up in tears. She screamed that I was a controlling mother and was invading her privacy, and that this was her car since we bought it for her, so we had no right to secretly install the tracker without her permission. I talked to someone else about it, and they did say I took the wrong approach, and that it was wrong of me to install the tracker, and that I should have done something else. I would have taken the key back, but she refuses to give it to me, and I don't know where she keeps it. Am I the jerk for secretly installing a GPS tracker in my daughter's car? Edit. I do plan to remove the tracker once she gets her license. It's only while she has her learner's permit. Edit 2. Update. We drove the car to a local Walmart because I saw they're pretty friendly with truckers and van dwellers, so I figured that they wouldn't mind a car left overnight. We don't have anyone who lives nearby that we can keep the car at. I called an auto locksmith, and they said that the earliest they can come out is tomorrow afternoon, so we're waiting on that. There's a lot of people who ask the same questions, and I can't respond to everyone, so I'm just going to answer them here. Why did you buy her a car in the first place? I wanted her to be able to practice driving for her license in a car that would be familiar even after she got her license. That way, she would feel more confident since she knows the car, where everything is, etc. Driving is scary, so I wanted it to be a really smooth transition from her learners to her license. This is also why we didn't think to sell the car either, since we wanted to keep it for this reason. I told my husband about selling the car, and he said he would think about it. He was the one who paid for it. Why did you give her a key in the first place? My parents bought me a car when I was 14 and had my learner's permit also. They immediately gave me a key to it, and I never once drove the car without their permission despite always having the key. I thought my daughter would do the same thing. I've raised her almost exactly how my parents raised me, so I thought she'd act the same way as I did in the same situation. Why haven't you taken the key? I've told her to give it back to me, but she refuses, and even when I searched her room, I was unable to find it. Why haven't you done anything to punish her? I already told her she was grounded a long time ago, and she does not get to use a smartphone. She still has a flip phone. I don't want to completely take away a phone, because I still want her to be able to contact me in case of emergency, but has unrestricted access to her laptop because her homework is posted and submitted online. Why haven't you disabled the car? To be honest, both me and my husband don't know much about cars, so this didn't even occur to us to try. I'd never even heard of a steering wheel club before. We're the type of people who bring our car into the shop for any maintenance, so I didn't know how to disable the car, so the idea of removing parts of the car and such never occurred to us. Why did you think the chalk and tracker would work? Honestly, just because it would have worked on me when I was a teen. I didn't like upsetting my parents, so I never did things like this, and small minor punishments really quickly put me in my place growing up whenever I did misbehave. I thought the tracker was more serious than the chalk because it meant that I would find out she took the car almost immediately before she got too far. Take the keys from her. It's really as simple as that. But a GPS does not prevent your daughter's bad and dangerous behavior. Why does she still have unrestricted access to the keys? So, I guess you're the jerk for not preventing your 15-year-old from endangering innocent motorists. Honestly, I would sell the car. Your daughter is a spoiled brat. You might have to knock a couple hundred off the sale price since you only have one key. You're the jerk. Take the darn keys already. Good grief. Tracking her does nothing to prevent her from getting into an accident. You bought her a car, but I'm guessing it's in your name and you're the one paying on the insurance. Be a parent, not a sneak. Take the keys to your office or someplace outside your home and lock them up. A no-car diet should start immediately for her. Well, what would you do in this situation? How would you try to get the keys from your daughter? Please let us know.
Just another example of why I'm so glad we don't have kids, Reddit boy.
Am I the jerk for literally showing my dad how he behaves every day when he gets home from work? I'm 16, female. My father, who's 46, is the breadwinner, while my mom is a stay-at-home mom. She handles everything around the house like cooking, mopping, washing, laundry, etc. I'm the oldest and I try to help, but really there's only so much I can do while my dad just gets home at the end of the day and literally complains about everything, like how the carpet isn't clean or how the food is cold. As a result, I'd have to listen to a huge argument daily between him and mom. It's exhausting, but honestly, I think that my dad is in the wrong here. I tried talking to him to get him to see how his behavior is, but to no avail. So what I did was pick a day off for him and pretended to act like him. I put together an outfit that looked like a suit and put black tape over my lips to look like a mustache. At 6 p.m., I went inside the house, shouted, "I'm home!" then sat next to him in the living room and started kicking my shoes off while complaining about the state of the house at the top of my lungs. He glanced at me, confused, asking what I was doing. I ignored him, then started yelling about the carpet being dirty, shower not ready, the kids needing to be quiet, and so on. He kept staring while mom and my siblings laughed. My younger brother kept pointing towards me, saying, "This is daddy." I then proceeded to yell about dinner, then went off on my mom for not preparing it before time. My dad stopped me and in a serious tone asked what I was doing. I turned to him and said, "What? Can't a man rest after working long hours?" in the most macho voice I could muster. My dad got the hint because this was the common phrase he uses daily. He went quiet and avoided looking at me. I stopped the act and told him I was just trying to show him what he's like every day when he comes home from work. He said nothing, just went outside and refused to speak to me. Later, he went on about how I mocked and invalidated him, that he does work hard, and me doing this was disrespectful and invalidating. Mom said it was funny, but also thought I hurt my dad's feelings, and I could have gotten the message across some other way instead. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You held up a mirror to his behavior and he didn't like what he saw. That's on him. I hope he gets the message. Not the jerk, first off, but I think you have a good chance here. Listen, please. You can acknowledge, "Hey Dad, I know that probably did hurt your feelings and I'm sorry. Of course you work hard and provide for us and we appreciate it. But I want you to see that your behavior hurts Mom's feelings. It hurts the family." The fact he went quiet instead of exploding in anger, to me says there's hope. Like many dudes his age, he struggles to process those emotions, but he recognized he was feeling more embarrassed and hurt than angry, it seems. The key is to understand and withhold judgment, to recenter the convo on not just his pain, but everyone's feeling pain and moving forward. That's tough, and you're a kid. It's not your responsibility to do it. You would be morally justified to say buzz off, but I always ask, do you want to win or be right? Being right often feels hollow. I hope you win. I just want to hop onto this excellent comment to add that I would also recommend you having a private chat with your mom. Explain to her that
Me acting like dad wasn't just about pointing out his bad behavior towards you. I also wanted to point out how your marriage affects the whole family. The daily fights and dad's yelling affects everyone. We all feel it when it gets to the time dad is due home and we prepare to listen to our dad to be mean to our mom. It affects all of us knowing our dad doesn't respect our mom. Every day we all watch your hard work. We've started trying to help you out because we know our dad doesn't appreciate or respect the hard work you do. It's so bad that younger brother recognized I was pretending to be dad so quickly, yet dad didn't know what I was doing until the last minute. But what affects me the most is knowing that despite all this, you always put dad's feelings first, before your own and before everyone else's. Even now, you're more concerned with how what I did hurt dad's feelings than you're concerned by how dad's behavior affects the rest of the family. Brother strongly associates that behavior with dad, while dad apparently has no idea he behaves like this. And your priority is me apologizing to dad, not changing this dynamic between you and dad, or asking dad to apologize to us for making our atmosphere at home so awful every time he comes home from work. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or dad? Please let us know. Company did over long-term employees, and my boss' act of revenge helped me start a company for pennies on the dollar. For legal reasons, I can't disclose the exact location, purely because the team I worked with were cool guys and our boss did over corporate really hard without them noticing. This took place in 2012. Part 1. The Fire Marshal. I worked at a smaller chain electronics store that sold top-of-the-line video cameras, PCs, cell phones, photo cameras, and this new thing called 4K televisions. For context, we were located at an expensive outlet mall. We were literally the only electronics store in the mall and the only place for 50 miles that sold high-end electronics. Logic dictates that this in itself would make our location prime real estate and we would have record sales every year. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what happened, and we basically did well 5 years in a row. Furthermore, I got hired because I came into the store looking for some video equipment. The store manager was caught off guard by my advanced technical knowledge of camera technology because I kept asking him specific technical questions on certain models. Note, this piece of information is relevant for the end of the story. So with that preamble out of the way, let's get into the heart of the story. While working the camera counter, the mall fire marshal came in and asked to see the store manager. Since I had no customers at that moment, I decided to take him to the back to meet my manager. This verbatim is what I can remember. Me: "Hey, the fire marshal's here." Manager: "Why?" Me: "Don't know. Want me to let him in your office?" Manager: "Sure, give me a moment." Marshal: "Okay, mall management wanted me to ask when you want me to bring in the construction foreman." Me: "What, are we building something?" Looking at my rather baffled boss. Manager: "No, I didn't ask for a construction foreman." Marshal: "Well, aren't you aware of the new, overpriced clothing store that's going to be built here?" At that exact moment, I and the store manager looked at each other, then looked at the fire marshal, who handed my manager the work order on the brand new, overpriced clothing store that was going to be built at our exact location, thus permanently ending the only high-end electronics store for miles around. Part 2. Money Talks. A few days later, the manager held a store meeting with me and the rest of the team. Prior to this meeting, the manager gave me permission to tell the rest of our 12-person team about the incident with the fire marshal. So the manager confronted corporate about what was going on, and after some skillful verbatim gymnastics, we got the whole story. Manager: "So I called corporate to ask what's happening, and I'll tell you straight. Overpriced clothing store has been trying for 10 years to get a spot at this outlet mall. They went to every store with a buyout offer for the storefront. The CEO of this electronic chain was approached by Overpriced Clothing Store with a massive check in the millions to break our lease and hand over the storefront to them. We weren't supposed to know any of this. Corporate wanted us to be in the dark right up until the last day 2 weeks from today." Yep, everyone was upset. In fact, we were so angry that all of us did the absolute bare minimum. This included the manager. In 1 week, we tanked our own sales by 70%. Corporate freaked out and sent a hatchet man to talk to the store. This doofus was confused why we weren't giving it 110% and was surprised we got visibly angry when he informed us that we wouldn't be getting severance pay or a letter of recommendation. My manager very politely told him to leave and that he would take care of the situation himself. Part 3. Oops, my finger slipped.
After the hatchet man was banished from our store, the manager took a close look at the management handbook and noticed a little snafu that was written in the book in regards to discretionary discounts. Mainly that the store manager has permission to discount any product in the store up to 90% off, and the offset of the cost will be absorbed at the end of the year discretionary cost analysis. Yes, you read that last sentence correctly, and the wonderful part of this story is that the store was being shut down by the end of February. So another store meeting was held. The manager told us that 2 days before our last day, we were having a secret 90% off sale just for the employees and their family. When I heard this, I asked the question everyone was thinking. Me. So let me get this straight. This includes every single item in this store? Manager. Yup. In fact, what you guys can do is pick out everything you want now and set up a little pile in the back room. Make sure you guys labeled everything, and I'll include the premium service warranties for free. Well, I decided to do some shopping. Newfangled 240Hz 4K TV, 4K camera system, 3 5-hour spare batteries, SD cards, microphones, laptops, drives, tripods, all kinds of stuff. But wait, there's more. The manager told me I could have any of the HDMI and mini DisplayPort cables that are currently attached to the showroom TV and computer displays. On the day of the secret 90% off sale, we all showed up 2 hours early from the back entrance and bought our items. With tax, I paid about $1,153 for about $13,000 worth of brand new electronics, and in essence, gave me the necessary tools to start my own media business. As one final forget you to corporate, the manager gave all of us a phone number to a caseworker at the local unemployment office who was very sympathetic to our case. Part 4. I've never seen this man before in my life. Well, flash forward to March 2013, and I'm carefully navigating my freelance media company into a nice stream of steady work. I get an unknown phone call from a law firm representing the electronics company. Apparently, $400,000 worth of electronics were mistakenly sold at a 90% discount, and they wanted to know if I had any information on where I could find my manager. The following conversation is what I can recall to the best of my memory. Me. May I ask why you need to know this information? Law firm. Well, we believe that he woefully misused his discount privileges. Me. Okay, but could you answer a question for me first? Law firm. Sure. Me. Why did your client, the CEO of an electronic chain, take a multi-million-dollar check to break a lease on his own business and not properly inform the store staff of its impending closure? Dead silence. Me. Hello? Law firm. Sorry to bother you, sir. And that was it. The moral of the story, don't do over your employees. P.S. Boss, if you're reading this, take comfort in the fact that none of us have sold you out, and I hope you're living a wondrous life. Am I the jerk for refusing to take my daughter to my ex-husband's wedding? I'm 42, female. My ex-husband, who's 45, and I were together for 20 years. We had a beautiful daughter together, Jocelyn, who's 14. We got a divorce 5 years ago due to infidelity on his part. I was devastated. He was the love of my life, and he betrayed all of the trust and loyalty we had built up. To make matters worse, he ended up in a relationship with the woman he cheated on me with. They got engaged 1 year later and are set to be married in 2 weeks. Honestly, I still am heartbroken over my divorce. It's hurtful to me that we were together for 20 years and he could just go fall in love with someone else, as if I was nothing. However, Jocelyn was only 9 when we divorced, and he's a great father, so I would never want to come between their bond. Jocelyn loves his fiancée, as she's very sweet to her, but she doesn't know the reason why her dad and I divorced. I want to tell her when she's a bit older, and he doesn't want to tell her at all. Anyways, I compromised with him that Jocelyn could come to the wedding, but that he would have to provide the transportation to and from the wedding, as I want no part of it. I don't want to drop my daughter off at his wedding. I don't want to see all the decorations and the happy guests. It would just be too much for me. I didn't tell him all of that, obviously, but he agreed. Today he calls me and asks if he can ask for a huge favor. It turns out that his future in-laws are flying in the morning of the wedding and he has to go pick them up. Therefore, he can't pick up my daughter the day of and wanted to ask if I could take her. I said absolutely not and asked why he can't pick her up the day before when she gets off of school. He said he doesn't want to make the drive twice and then he will likely not have time as he has to prepare for the rehearsal dinner. I asked why can't the bride pick up her parents, and he said she'll be getting her hair done and won't be able to. I laughed and told him there was no way I'd take my daughter and that he'd have to figure it out. Boy, why did I say that? My daughter ran downstairs crying. Her face was red 10 minutes after my conversation with her dad, calling me terrible and accusing me of not wanting her to spend time with her dad. I told her that's not the case, and she demanded to know why I couldn't take her. I couldn't give her an answer, and she ran upstairs crying. Now I'm getting messages from his family calling me heartless and cold and a jerk for trying to ruin his special day over a relationship that is long over. My family understands my point of view, but I feel terrible that I've upset my daughter. I don't know what to do. Am I the jerk? Should I just put aside my feelings and take her? Not the jerk, but I also think your daughter is old enough to know the truth about her father. Otherwise, you will be the bad guy going forward. Not the jerk. The people he needs to pick up can get a taxi. His first responsibility should be his daughter, if he actually wants her there. And I think it might be time to tell your daughter a bit more about what happened. She's a teenager now and needs to be learning lessons about loyalty and managing relationships responsibly. Her getting the impression that this situation is all right and that you're wrong for not being happy that the ex-husband who cheated on you is getting remarried is not a good place for her to start when it comes to learning how to expect good treatment from future partners. If he thinks picking up his future in-laws is more important than picking up his own daughter, then he's very, very wrong. The adult in-laws can manage a variety of transportation options. A young teenager can't. He's showing his priorities, and it isn't his daughter, and you need to be prepared to help protect her and guide her as he continues into the future, wanting to play happy family and have his daughter go along with it while he puts her in second place to his new family. Not the jerk, but 14 is old enough to understand cheating. I would tell darling daughter that while I love her, and I love that she has a good relationship with her dad and her future stepmom, I can't handle seeing their wedding when they started dating while dad and I were still married. Then I would ask her if she has any idea as to how she can be at the wedding without me having to see it. Sometimes teenagers are incredible out-of-the-box thinkers. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her ex-husband? Please let us know.
He's showing where his priorities lie, bruh. You should be putting your daughter first, my dude.
Dumb employee is dumb. I worked at an office supply store for a while in my late 20s while finishing college. I worked mostly with younger college students and began training other employees and running the front end of the store. Our amazing manager took a better position elsewhere, and we were gifted a manager who was absolutely horrible. Let's call her Jean. She treated us so poorly that we went from over 20 employees to just 7 in the first couple of months of her taking reign. Jean was absolutely horrible, but I stood up for myself and the few remaining employees and openly expressed my disdain for her while remaining completely professional on paper. And here comes annual evaluations. Jean gives me an absolutely horrible review. Since our raises were performance-based, I did not get a raise. I refused to sign and contested my evaluation, which really upset her. Since we only had 7 employees left, we were desperately hiring. Within a week or two, she had hired a few people and scheduled me to train them, so I did what any rational human about to quit their crappy job for a career would do. I formally asked HR for retraining due to my perceived incompetence and made it clear that I was no longer comfortable training new hires. I simultaneously began refusing to do any work outside of my minimal assigned responsibilities and began moving really slowly. I made myself as incompetent as possible, refusing to answer customer questions via phone and forwarding all calls to her, paging her for help for stupid things, intentionally messing up the cash register, and requesting policies for irrelevant operations. I stopped meeting quotas, and when coached, I would play dumb and pretend like I was trying my hardest. Most importantly, I started correcting customers and contractors who called her Jean and insisted her name was Jan. When she questioned me, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name well, Jan." It infuriated her. Of course, Jean was also upset she had to train the new employees herself. I filed a formal complaint with HR about my lack of retraining every week until they fired me. I had another job lined up, but I filed an unemployment claim anyway just to leave some extra work for her. Petty bonus. I never told her that my mom was the store's biggest buyer at the time and had been in the top 3 forever. Guess who took her business to Office Max? My very non-confrontational mother actually went into the store to request her account be closed, knowing that contract accounts have to be closed by the store manager.
Why are you closing your account? I'm Bree's mom. She got canned about a year later, and I'd like to think I was the little match that lit the fire. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my business profit with my husband? I, female 32, have a leg disability that got worse to the point I could no longer work, so I stayed home with the kids for 4 years. I had plenty of free time after the kids became more independent, and I found myself sitting around all day long. I have a sewing hobby that I learned while living with my grandmother since I was 13, so I started spending my time sewing. My husband made a laughingstock out of me, calling me grandma or granny, and running with the jokes and teasing. It was unbearable, but I ignored him. Anyway, a friend of mine saw some of my work and suggested that I open a website and sell what I make. I was hesitant about it, and my husband's opinion was, meh, who would want to buy grandma's junk? But I asked my friend to help me, and people really liked my work. They started buying them off of me, which was shockingly amazing, y'all. I started really investing into this, and in 1 month, I was able to make over $200 to $300. It's been 3 months now into the business. When money started coming, my husband would ask me to buy something or make a restaurant reservation or even fix his car for him. When I refuse, he'd say that I have money from my sewing business and should really pay. I decline every single time he asks. Yesterday, he showed me a wristwatch online that he really liked and asked me if I could pay for it. I said no because I have no money. He pointed out once again the money I have from my sewing business, but I told him that the money was literally none of his business. He blew up, saying that I was being selfish and mean, and said that the business profits should be split equally between both of us. I use caps because he yelled those words, not just me. I told him he not only mocked me for sewing, he even doubted my potential. Besides that, I do all the work, so why would he expect profit? He said that he, as my husband, gets half and I should really consider it or stop the sewing thing altogether. I laughed, thinking he was messing around, but he left the house, then came back looking upset. His friend called to scold me, reminding me that my husband already does enough for me to be able to find time to sew, and so he deserves a percentage, but I still refused. Now his family are pressuring me to share the money, but I'm still refusing. Am I the jerk? Everyone sucks here. Your husband sucks for belittling you and discouraging you, but I assume your husband works and has been bringing in an income that he used to pay for food and shelter. You got a share in that, didn't you? Your husband may not deserve a percentage, but you're supposed to be in this marriage together. It doesn't sound like you are. If that's the case, end it with him so you can both find someone more suitable. Info. Depends very much on who's paying what bills. For instance, if you're saying, my money is mine, but your money is ours, then you are very much the jerk. If his income pays the bills and you get to keep yours to yourself, that's an issue. If you get a disability check that is used for your share of the bills and this is just extra, different story. Everyone sucks here. At the core of it, you were a stay-at-home mom and now you're working again. You should be contributing equitably to the household. Your husband is definitely worse though for how he has handled basically every aspect of the situation, from relentless teasing of your hobby to a lack of support for your business to not addressing the financial situation directly, and then involving friends and family into the conflict. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for calling my husband an awful father because he wanted to leave the house to his biological daughter only? My husband and I have been married for 13 years. He has a daughter, Alyssa, who's 16 from a previous relationship, and I have my daughter, Mariah, who's 15 from a previous relationship too. My husband is the only father my daughter has ever known, and until now, he has made no distinction about our kids. Alyssa's mother is still very involved in her life, and she spends half the month with us, while my daughter lives with us full-time. My father-in-law recently passed and left him their house, a very nice house. We're actually so excited about this because we were saving to buy a home for us four, and now that we're making plans to move, I told my husband we could use that money to make some renovations for when the kids inherited it, so they can sell it and split the money. He said no, that the house will be his daughter's and that he doesn't feel comfortable leaving it to Mariah too when she's not his legal kid, and that we could set the money aside for her because the house doesn't need that much work anyway, which is true, but it felt like a low blow. I said it was unfair to leave Alyssa a full house and remarked how he was willing to leave it to both when we were going to buy one, and he said that that was because we would have bought it together.
so it was only fair. I said he was being an awful father and asked if he was willing to leave one of his kids homeless, but he said I was overreacting. I pointed out how Alyssa was getting this house with some of the money her grandparents already left her, plus my husband's inheritance and her mother's, while Mariah only had us both. My father-in-law didn't leave her anything, which is okay. He admitted it wasn't fair, but that's just how it is, and that we would work to try to make it as even as possible. I was flabbergasted, so I just took Mariah and came to stay with my sister. He called asking to talk, but I'm not ready. My sister said I was the jerk because Mariah is not entitled to my husband's childhood home, and it made me think. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Your daughter is not entitled to his childhood home, and your husband was definitely making concessions to make it more fair for her by offering to save up money for her. It is really narcissistic and actually selfish of you to expect your husband to leave his stepdaughter, your daughter, his childhood home from his father, when usually stuff like that goes down the bloodline. I could see being upset if he was trying to exclude her from anything, but he's not. You need to reevaluate your attitude and your way of thinking before you lose a good man. You're the jerk. He's keeping the house in the family. Sorry, but your daughter is not his daughter. It's not like he's kicking her to the curb. Presumably, y'all are going to give that money and more to your daughter, like he said. Ouch. At what point does a stepkid become a real kid, though? Are we exiled to the island of misfit toys to be treated as less than indefinitely? Family doesn't stick to blood ties only. I asked my stepdad to walk me down the aisle. He was in the delivery room for my firstborn, and I named one of my kids after him too. I'm closer to him than my biological dad, and he's the one I hang out with on Father's Day. I'd be upset if he only viewed me as my mother's kid only. This is a tough situation with nuance, and the solution is not so black and white. On paper, yeah, the house is his, so he can leave it to the local trash pandas if he wants. It makes sense to leave it to the kid with biological ties to his father. But the reality is his stepdaughter will definitely feel some type of way at the difference. He's been her dad since she was 2. That's going to sting for sure. I don't blame OP for being hurt on her behalf and on her daughter's as well. Not the jerk is my vote. He has the right to do what he wants, and OP has a right to her feelings. Edit to add. I doubt OP and her husband will give Mariah the equivalent cash value of the home, especially if they live in a high cost of living area, so there will be a marked difference between the two. My wife released our bunny in the middle of our yard. The hawk got a free meal. A few days ago, my kids found a little bunny and brought it home, and they were begging us to keep it. But we can't keep a wild rabbit and already have several pets. The bunny was big enough to fend for itself, and I tried to nicely tell my kids that it needs to go back home to its family. They were sad, but agreed to take it back. However, I was busy with work and couldn't go with them, so my wife went. I told her to take the bunny to some thorn bushes at the end of the property and let it go there, because that's the safest place to do it. We live in a country area, ripe with animals that would eat the rabbit. Well, I went back to work, but a little while later, my kids came running back into the house, loudly crying, with my wife trailing after them and trying to calm them down and telling them that it's not so bad. I asked what happened, and my eldest said that Mama made them let the bunny go in the middle of the yard, and a hawk took it. They even described what it sounded like. I was upset, then got angry at my wife for not letting it go the way I'd advised. She defended herself and said it was just a bunny, the kids will get over it. But I said that was absolutely wrong, and I warned her about animals that would try to get it. And now our kids had to see the poor bunny get carried away by a hawk. Both of our kids shut themselves in their rooms, and they stopped talking to their mother for days. And when she tries to talk to them, they call her a monster. I've tried to mediate, but my kids are still mad. And I'm still mad at my wife for how things went down. She's angry with me for not having her back, and said as husband and wife, we're always supposed to support one another. But we got into an argument where I pointed out numerous times she has not had my back. She started crying too, and has gone off to our room to pout. I'm thinking I messed up now, so a friend told me to ask here. Am I the jerk? Edit. Yes, I understand hawks need to eat too, and they're all over our area. I just didn't want my kids to see that happen to the bunny. They're 4 and 5 years old. I grew up a country boy, and my wife was a city girl, and when I was growing up, any similar situation with a wild critter that was caught, we'd try to let it go in a place where it would have a fighting chance. Edit 2. I did not yell at her. Where exactly in my post does it say that I did that? I admonished her, yes, but I didn't yell. Not even when we argued later on. We did that in whispers so the kids wouldn't hear us, and I couldn't go with them to release the bunny because I couldn't get away from my office. I work from home half the week and have to be near the phone at all times to answer a call while on the clock, unless on my lunch break. I also never once called my wife the names that our kids are calling her after what happened with the bunny, and I've tried to make them stop. I would never call my wife such a thing. That would make me a bully. Edit 3. Apologies for so many edits, but my kids were not playing in the yard unsupervised. My wife is a stay-at-home mom and was with them when they found the bunny. They came running back to the house with it, and I had to tell them it needed to be let go. Not the jerk. To the people saying you're the jerk because your wife didn't summon the hawk, you warned her specifically that there were animals that would try to get the rabbit when it was released. You predicted that this would happen. Your wife ignored it, and it happened. Now, I'm not going to say that she hurt the rabbit, but she should be equally horrified that this happened in front of them and should apologize for it going down the way that it did. She didn't summon the hawk, but it sounds like you live in an area where it didn't need to be summoned. I live in an area like this with lots of animals. What the wife did was unbelievably stupid and lazy. Did she just not want to walk that far? How long has she lived in the area, and she didn't know that the bunny would be toast if she let it go in the open? A friend of mine lost a small dog to a coyote in the middle of the day. He came out of nowhere, snatched the dog, and that was it. When you live in a place like this, you need to be aware. Not the jerk. I sadly know people who would think, we'll release the rabbit where we get the best view and can enjoy it hopping away, and totally ignore the, it's not safe that way, because they think their enjoyment of the moment trumps the animal's safety. The same people that have shocked looks on their faces when things go bad, they like to pretend that they didn't know better and are totally innocent when you told them it was a bad idea. Some people are selfish like that. OP's wife is one of those people. I'm the neighborhood rabbit lady. Aside from having domestic rabbits, I'm the one people call when they have a nest that they want gone or their cat brought home a baby. If I'm forced to relocate bunnies, I have a few spots that I take them to, and all involve crawling through brush to get them to the best spot possible. Do I know they might not make it? Yeah, and that makes me sad, but the least I can do is give them a decent shot. He wasn't just a bunny, and you're not the jerk. The only way your wife has a chance of earning her kids' trust and respect is by owning up to her failure. She failed that baby bunny 100%. She needs to acknowledge this before your kids and accept the rightful judgment. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Sometimes if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. You can tell someone over and over the right way to do something, and they'll still mess it up.
Am I the jerk for canceling my credit card after my boyfriend refused to return it to me? I'll preface by saying that me, 27, and my boyfriend, 30, have been together for 3 years and a half. I've been jumping from one job to another while he's been unemployed due to health issues that affected his performance at work. Usually, I'm the one handling rent, bills, groceries, etc. I use my credit card to make any purchase I want. Last week, my boyfriend out of nowhere asked for my credit card. I asked why, since I'm the one who handles payments and supermarket trips. He told me he wanted to buy some food, and I agreed to let him take it, but I told him to return it later. He got back later, and when I asked about my credit card, he was like, "What credit card?" I thought he was joking, so I told him to just give it back. He said he'd just keep it with him. I asked why, and he said so he could start handling paying for stuff on my behalf. I felt uncomfortable. I said I'd rather not burden him with this stuff and asked him to just hand over the credit card. He refused and said that he'll just keep it since it doesn't have that much money anyway. I was livid. I tried to argue, but he told me to just trust him and let him keep it, and he swore that he wouldn't spend a penny from it. Next morning, I went and canceled it and then registered a new one. He must have tried to use it because he called and was confused, asking why the credit card was not valid anymore. I told him it's because I canceled it and registered a new one. He lost it and started going off on me, saying he couldn't believe I had this level of petty and kept on about how I don't trust him with my finances and how I've been financially mistreating him lately. I hung up on him. The argument continued at home, and he called me paranoid and unreasonable and all that. Then he started cold-shouldering me and sulking about it for days. I do feel like I hurt his feelings and showed an amount of distrust towards him. Am I the jerk for canceling the credit card? Edit, adding in some info. Like I said, he has a physical disability that limits his opportunities for work. He receives no disability benefits because he doesn't want to. He refuses to acknowledge he has a disability and pretends that it doesn't even exist at all. When I tell him to look for a job, he'd blame people for purposely refusing to employ him and say that they look down on him like he's lacking or beneath them. He comes from a humble background, no longer has contact with family due to abandonment issues, but he has some friends to lean on. Since someone asked, the answer is, I do almost 80% of the chores while he does the other 20%. Reason for that is his disability. Finally, I pay for rent, bills, groceries, his med, and transportation as well, so I needed the card to be constantly with me. Not the jerk. He swore he wouldn't spend a penny from it, followed by, the next day he must have tried to use it. Your instincts were excellent, as was your decisive and immediate action. You know what he wanted was wrong. Trust yourself. He found out you canceled it because he tried to use it, even though he promised he wouldn't. But you're the paranoid one? Right. Not the jerk. He's definitely gaslighting you. Also, beware. Since he isn't working, that means he can get to the mail first and take the replacement card when it arrives. He contributes what to your life? Does he help around the house or have a side hustle to help pay bills? Sounds like he's just leeching off of you. OP, let me make a list. A, he doesn't and can't bring in money due to a lack of employment caused by his physical disability. B, he does some things around the house, but nothing compared to what I do. Again, his physical disability gets in the way. C, he has no contact with his family. He only has 3 close friends and that's about it. D, he has a number of mental health issues and it's always affected our relationship. I also pay for his medication. You deserve more. A good partner will always contribute even when they're navigating their own issues. You can and should leave him. Exactly. I have several physical and mental disabilities as well, and I try my hardest to best help my partner in any way I can. Same goes for them. They're in a similar situation, and we help build each other up instead of tearing each other down. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
What I want to know is, where did you find this guy?
Clock watching for professionals. My favorite example of malicious compliance happened when I worked some 20 years ago for a local government agency here in the US, which shall remain nameless. We were a small, well-run office with a supervisor who had a very laissez-faire style of leadership, and this worked. Do your job. If you have an idea, develop a program and we'll try it. If it doesn't work, no harm done. Take what we can learn from it and use that on another program. Many programs develop spontaneously, and there was a very collegial relationship within the department between everyone from the department head down to the administrative staff and with other departments across the organization as well. That department head retired and was replaced by a retired Army colonel who was very controlling in his style. Suddenly, multiple degreed professionals who were used to a significant amount of autonomy and who constantly worked well beyond the hours for which they were paid were being told that they could not extend their lunch hour by 15 minutes once a week to participate in the local Rotary Club meetings, despite that we were expected to be involved in local civic groups as part of our job, and that they had to take a 15-minute break at the assigned time each day. As might be imagined, these administrative changes did not go over well. In response to the new top-down mandates, the informal leaders instituted policies of their own without ever saying a word. Suddenly, if their assigned break time occurred and they were on the telephone, they explained, "I'm sorry, but it's my assigned break time and I have to go now. I'll be back in 15 minutes. Meetings that were ongoing at 4:59 p.m. were abruptly adjourned with the note that those from the office were mandated to complete their activities by 5 daily, and it would be necessary to reschedule another meeting to complete whatever business was on the table. Mind you, these were people who regularly worked with elected officials at the national, state, and local levels, as well as the public. When lunchtime, or 5 came, they immediately stopped work, often simply leaving the file drawer open with the files laying on top as they walked away. It didn't take long for support staff to follow suit. This was not the kind of action to which those that had worked with them in the past were accustomed, nor was it what one would expect from professionals. It was, however, exactly what was mandated by the new program. Nothing was ever coordinated between them or the other staff. It wasn't long before the new department head was getting a call from their supervisor, who also happened to be a retired colonel, suggesting that they get a handle on the situation and fix it immediately. Of course, there was no disciplinary action because there were no rule violations. Indeed, there was hyper-compliance with the rules established. Things never completely relaxed under the new department head, and I'm sure he wondered why there were no more innovative projects proposed. He had effectively put out the spark that was at the heart of the group, and within a year or so, there was about a 60% turnover. Am I the jerk for refusing to split rent with my boyfriend? I, female 23, have been dating my boyfriend, Jake, male 23, since our freshman year of college. In our last year of undergrad, we decided to rent an apartment together. We split everything 50-50, including utilities, groceries, and rent. We continued living together in the same town as our college after graduation, but recently we both got jobs in Chicago, and we're currently living downtown. My dad works in real estate, and he has multiple investment properties. My dad generously allowed me to live in one of his properties rent-free, but he said that my boyfriend would have to pay him $400 a month for rent. My dad is very protective, but he's been nothing but kind to my boyfriend. My dad's reasoning for making my boyfriend pay rent is that he wants to be sure that my boyfriend is with me for me, and not because he will have a free place to live. Keep in mind, if my dad was renting this apartment out to tenants, he would charge $2,100 a month for rent. Very ritzy building in the middle of downtown Chicago. My boyfriend is mad at me because he asked me for my half of the $400 for rent, and I explained to him that I will not be paying rent. My dad is only charging him. He says that we've been splitting rent for the past 2 years, so why would we stop now? Our rent in our college town was $1,200, so we were both paying $600 a month. Our apartment in Chicago is significantly nicer, and he's paying $200 less a month than what he was in college. Is the idea that my dad doesn't charge me for rent, but charges my boyfriend rent so crazy? Should I suck it up and pay half because I can afford it? Edit. Jake and I still split utilities and groceries 50-50, and when we go out on date nights, we switch off who pays for it. If he pays one week, I'll pay the next. Not the jerk. Rent isn't $400, it's $2,100. Point out that if he wants to split rent, then do so by having your dad charge the full amount, which means his portion is $1,050. Pay your dad that, and dad can give it back to you or put it in escrow to save for a future house. The $400 is a major discount for him, and dad lets you have it for free. Not the jerk. A nice ritzy building? Check. Located in downtown? Check. Only $400 a month? Double check. Near your jobs? Check. Getting the family discount from girlfriend's dad? Check. What more does your boyfriend want? Clearly, he's not seeing the bigger picture. He's getting a lot of perks because of you, and he only has to pay a fraction of the rent. Doesn't he realize that millions don't have that luxury in these critical times of the economy? Plus, he's failing miserably with your dad's test. Your dad's suspicions are kind of right. Your boyfriend is either 1. Greedy and disingenuous, or 2. Stupid. Either way, it's not attractive. Gentle, everyone sucks here. This sounds like a really good way to build resentment. You've been together for a while, and your dad is still questioning your boyfriend's loyalty. Is there justification for this? Why does anybody think it's appropriate for your father to put your boyfriend through some weird litmus test? Do you agree with your dad that your boyfriend's intentions need to be proven by financial control? What is your boyfriend supposed to say here? Is he supposed to be thrilled that your father is treating him like a potential enemy rather than another person who loves his daughter and wants to care for her? I don't think this is really about the money for him, so much as it's insulting to be told the reason he has to pay when you don't is because he's untrustworthy with your heart. So everyone sucks here because 1. You're an adult and your dad is putting you against your boyfriend by implying you can't trust his intentions. Rather than having an adult conversation with you, he's manipulating the situation to his favor to test your boyfriend. And quite frankly, you should be insulted that he doesn't trust your judgment enough to talk with you about his concerns in a tangible and open way. 2. You think it's perfectly reasonable for your dad to test your boyfriend's loyalty through financial control. 3. Your boyfriend isn't communicating well, focusing on financial equality when the issue is an opinion your father has and his ability to exercise control over your choices and your boyfriend's by offering you something you can't refuse even when it signals unhealthy behaviors and sets a precedent that your boyfriend may always be challenged and made to feel a need to repeatedly prove himself. There's no such thing as a free ride. Being told to pay rent is a reasonable ask. It's the why here that makes the whole situation gross. It isn't about ensuring responsibility or minimizing financial losses. It's about keeping you and your boyfriend under his thumb. Well, who do you think is the jerk? The boyfriend or her dad? Please let us know.
That last comment just about made my head explode. Boyfriend needs to count his blessings. Dad is doing them a huge favor.
Call everyone, you say? Explain everything? Sure, boss, I'm on it. A little bit of backstory. I used to run a medium-sized, 40-room hotel down in Florida for a couple of years, not that long ago. The hotel was a couple of old neighboring motels bought by a foreign investor and then extensively renovated into a single modern boutique hotel. The location was amazing for this type of business. Before the lockdown, it was indeed a prime piece of property. The property manager that ran it at the time had built the hotel up with the idea of a place people would be really happy to return to, especially considering that the person who had run the place at first, an ex-girlfriend of the owner, had chased all the old motel guests off. Apparently, and I quote one of our former guests here, "We don't want your kind here," she told people, meaning older generation, mainly middle-class Americans from the Midwest, spending their family vacations down in Florida every year for decades. Also, backtracking a bit to a point rather important for the story, the owner is not a nice person, nor had he ever worked in or had run the hospitality business. His main line of business is retail, abroad, very much so, and he's self-absorbed, entitled narcissist with an attitude. He had constantly meddled, making incredibly foolish or downright harmful decisions during the renovation, and then forcing the property manager to carry them out. She was smart and competent enough to usually find a workaround, but sometimes he insisted further. Things weren't smooth. So fast forward to me starting to run the actual hotel part of the business, which at first the owner hadn't meddled in that much. Our main focus groups at the time had been the cruise ship crowd, regular vacation goers, the conferences nearby, and finally, the annual events. Multiple music festivals, holidays, as well as the, drumroll, International Boat Show. The last one being a week-long affair of yacht-building companies selling their boats to rich folks, 10-minute walk from our hotel. The place I managed was a bit too low-key for the rich crowd, but guess where all those yacht-building companies wanted a room to place all their staff at? We had 40 of them, with multiple beds and full kitchens. And we had built the place up with the regular guests in mind, including the festival goers and the yachtsmen, especially the yachtsmen. Meaning discounts, free upgrades, personalized approach, regular touch-ups, even occasional barbecue parties. I was on the first-name basis with quite a few of the boat-building managers, as well as boat captains. Because when a boat is sold, they often stay around, get repaired, and the crew has to stay somewhere. And our little place was known in the circles as a good place for them. I had made it my goal to make it attractive for the target audiences, and in some of them, everyone knew each other and word got around. I'm a firm believer in the hospitality business being run with the client in mind, not the profit. So we had an amazing year of building up connections and making the place really nice to a few very specific circles. And then lockdown hit. The hotel was almost empty for half a year, had to furlough most of our staff for a while. Eventually, the lockdown was sort of forgotten about, at least in Florida. Cruise ships hadn't come back, but the regular vacation goers had, en masse. We got very busy, very fast. However, the owner wasn't thrilled with me hiring a new front desk receptionist. Why bother if I myself could do this job as well, right? Make housekeepers, we had 2 of them total for the entire place, do laundry as well, get the property manager to do accounting too. At the same time, the owner had bought a yacht, just because, and attempted to make our property manager run the boat as well. So after a few more months of struggle, she had finally had enough and she quit. Good for her. We're still friends even today. The owner replaced the property manager with his daughter. Like father, like daughter, exactly same type. However, in their country, manager is manager. They don't get the difference between a property manager, does the building or the property side of things, and a business manager, does the business in that building. She immediately had decided that her job was to run the hotel and my job was to do what I was told. And the first thing they do, the father and the daughter, is look at the boat show just 1 month ahead, as well as the festive season a couple of months later. They had a brilliant idea of making more money. After all, why had we sold all the rooms that cheap? Triple rates for the boat show. We could easily make twice as much, right? And why offer free parking when no one else around does that? Not like it's a selling point, right? So they tell me to change the room rates on existing reservations and start charging for the parking on reservations that were made with the free parking listed. And above all, charge more for the boat show. On the rooms that had been sold a year ago, mostly face-to-face when people were checking out after the last show, and it was apparently up to me to call them
and let them know that we had raised the rates by 50%. Oh, and that parking for the show is now $100 a day per vehicle. I was not happy with the idea, to say the least. For whatever reason, I had assumed that this is not how things are done in the US, even down in Florida, despite the infamous Florida man. Nor did I feel comfortable calling people, most of whom I knew, and telling them this banger of an idea. So I fought against this decision as hard as I could. I came up with various reasons as to why we should not do it, pointed out how we run the place, argued the point of the reputation. The owner hadn't listened, but said, "I hear you, but trust my business acumen. After all, I've made millions." The daughter had listened to me very carefully. Her reply, "Your direct superior had decided and given you instructions. It's not your place to think and question things. Just call them all and explain everything. That's your job." So, a bit of malicious compliance then. I called our guests, and not just the boat people. I called most regulars of ours. Took a while. Then I explained what was happening. I told them the truth, how things are run now, what new ideas are there, etc. I also told them that I was very much against these new decisions and that I probably won't be here much longer. Most of them thanked me for the information and said they will be in touch. A few local yachtsmen asked if they could come in to discuss things. In the end, the boat people were forced to pay extra. It's impossible to find a good property at any price range close to the boat show location just a month before the show itself. The local ones who came in and met with the owner and his daughter got a great deal of free parking after the price adjustment. I struggled to keep a professional face. However, when I met them on my own after their talk with the owner or when I talked with the other regulars over the phone, almost all of them thanked me for my efforts and told me they will not be back. Neither would anyone they know. Also, if I would go to a new place, would I please let them know so they can go there too? Well, that very week I gave the owner's daughter my notice. Left just before the show began, letting her be the one to deal with the storm, since she insisted on being the boss so much. From what I hear, she hasn't managed it all. Right now, the place is run by a shady management company that just doesn't care, with the daughter supposedly running the front desk. No one is answering any calls or checking emails. Reviews plummeted. They hadn't even renewed their license or paid Booking.com and Expedia fees, who are threatening legal action now. And apparently, the owner and his daughter blame me and the property manager for everything, since it's our leaving that did them over. Whatever. Am I the jerk for refusing to let it go after my parents falsely accused my brother of stealing from their house? I have an older half-brother, Rory. We share the same dad. I live with my mom and stepdad. Rory comes to see me regularly, and we usually go out together. I'm 15 and Rory is 24, and I have two stepsisters who are 11 and 9. A few months ago, some valuable items were stolen from our house. Some jewelry, my stepdad's expensive watches, and some cash. They immediately accused Rory of doing it and banned me from seeing him or talking to him. I defended Rory, and I was grounded as a result. The accusation was false because that day Rory picked me up outside and never came in, but they didn't believe me and accused me of lying to protect him. The police had no reason to believe it was my brother, and they didn't even consider him a suspect. About 2 weeks ago, the thief was found out, as he did the same thing at a relative's house, and they had security cameras, and eventually confessed to stealing from us as well. It obviously was not Rory. It was my stepdad's nephew, who had somehow copied his key without him noticing and used it to break in when nobody was home. I'm angry about all of this, and I asked them to apologize to both me and Rory for their false accusations, which my mom said she's happy to do, but my stepdad said no and told me I just have to learn to move on. Later that day, I reminded him to be extra careful about his keys when he visits his relatives to be sure nobody steals it and he wouldn't end up accusing people I love for no reason. This morning, he was looking for his sunglasses and couldn't find them, and I suggested that maybe I should help him find it before he goes to accuse someone innocent of stealing. He looked at me and told me to stop being rude. My mom talked to me and told me that I should stop being a jerk about it and apologize for not letting us move on from the unfortunate incident. I don't see why I should not advise caution when my family will be the scapegoat if things go wrong. Am I the jerk for expecting an apology and not moving on until I get it? Not the jerk. Accusing someone of stealing is a big deal. They just can't accept that they messed up. Also, why did they accuse him? OP. My stepdad just doesn't like him and always says he's a bad influence without any reason. Quick question. What about his nephew?
Is he now banned from the house and can't be spoken to? If not, then your brother's banning wasn't about the theft. Your stepdad has a problem with your brother for no legitimate reason from what I'm seeing. OP, his nephew is also banned now, but he does have a problem with my brother for no reason. His reason is because it's not his son. Not the jerk. Did you get an apology for being grounded? Did Rory get an apology for being falsely accused? Are you allowed to see Rory again? You're being petty, but I understand why. Not the jerk. Why is it on you and Rory, the wronged parties in this scenario, to make nice and move on? Rory was slandered to the whole family. He could have been arrested if the cops were less conscientious. You were punished for providing him an alibi and not doing anything wrong. Yes, your stepfather acted abominably, and he owes you and Rory apologies. You should not be expected to just let this go because your stepdad did you wrong, and it means he will let you and other people suffer for his pettiness and pride in the future. Nobody should let him think that's okay. Am I the jerk for refusing to make an exception for my brother's son to attend my child-free wedding? Hi, I, female 33, am getting married come October to my fiancé Derek. Wedding planning went okay, but as soon as we started sending out invitations, the problems began coming our way. Thing is, Derek and I decided the wedding would be child-free. It wasn't out of the blue, and this possibility was there. I have a 42-year-old brother, Paul, who's married, but he and his wife really struggled to have a baby. They finally were blessed with a son that everyone calls a miracle and a rainbow baby. My nephew is 4 years old now, and everyone salutes him and treats him like a king. And also, they turn a blind eye to any misbehaviors which he has, which has caused him to become loud, destructive, and out of control, and punishless. When Paul received the invitation and found out that kids weren't included, he and my mom lost it and decided on an urgent meeting with me and Derek. Paul said, "My son is an exception, right?" I said no, and this rule is to be followed by everyone. He argued that I was making a mistake by excluding my nephew. He and mom went on about how he's a miracle since he's their rainbow grandbaby. Then Paul said he had no problem with my wedding being child-free, but expects me to make an exception for his son. He explicitly said, "You can have your child-free wedding, but you're gonna have to make an exception for my son, and you know why." Derek apologized and said we won't since our friends and my in-laws had kids too, but now have to leave them home and arrange for babysitters, and advised him to do the same. Paul was offended and said if his son isn't invited, then he won't come, and gave us an ultimatum to drop out if we don't edit his invitation. That caused my family to freak out because Paul is the only and oldest sibling I have, and they said his presence at the wedding is a must. I had an argument with mom and dad who said the fact I'm choosing this to be my hill to die on and treating Paul and my nephew like that was appalling. They emphasized how my nephew is special and I should be ashamed to exclude him even when the wedding is child-free. My parents said if Paul won't come, they won't come either, which devastated me a lot and caused me to break down. Derek said they were the ones being unreasonable and disrespectful of our wedding, and we should wait, maybe they'll come around eventually, but they've doubled down. This morning, my aunt and uncle dropped out as well as my other uncle last week. Paul told everyone and they're supporting him and they won't come unless I make an exception for my nephew, but that will upset my guests and they'll call me a hypocrite. My family is divided, saying I'm ruining my own wedding, basically saying this is all on me. ETA, because I see this question asked a lot. My family have normalized this behavior from Paul and also from his wife. Whenever I point out how unacceptable it is to expect everyone to cater to my nephew and his parents, Paul would chime in with, "She's jealous," because he and his wife have a kid while I can't/don't. I was married before meeting Derek and divorced my ex-husband for my inability to have kids, but that's another story.
Honestly, your wedding's probably going to be much better off without any of them there in the first place. They sound like a bunch of buffoons.
New teacher is stealing school supplies that the parents bought. I'm 35, female, and my daughter, Natty, who's 8, started a new school this August. We moved from one coast to another, and we had some adjusting to do. When she started school, her teacher gave us a list of supplies she needed. Things like 24 packs of crayons, 300 pencils, etc. These are examples. I don't remember exact numbers, but it was quite a lot. I got everything on the list. The school is located in a very good district, and most parents are well off, and as far as I know,
most parents have bought everything that was on the list. You'd think that it was done and dusted, but no. We're a month in, and Natty just brought a new list home which lists the same supplies in large quantities. I thought it might have been a mistake and messaged other mothers in our group chat, and they were as surprised as I was. However, the list was confirmed by an email we received from the teacher asking us to bring the supplies as soon as possible and that lists will be supplied to us every 4 to 6 weeks. I know that kids go through a lot of supplies, but not this many. It was all very odd. I tried to snoop a little and find the teacher on Facebook, but I couldn't find her. However, when my friend came over, she was able to locate her. It seems that the teacher blocked all the parents on Facebook. Turns out that the teacher is selling supplies, crayons, etc. on the marketplace, and she had a page and a link to her website. To say that I was shocked would be an understatement. It seems that she's asking the parents to buy extra supplies and then resells it. What other reason does she have to require over 400 packs of crayons every 4 to 6 weeks? Like I said, most parents supplied everything on the supply list. I've kept it to myself because I'm unsure of what to do, but I am considering reporting the teacher to school so they can properly investigate. I thought it was the right thing to do, but my sister-in-law is a teacher, and she told me I would be the jerk if I were to do that, because kids go through a lot of supplies and no way the teacher resells them. It's probably a coincidence. But I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. I haven't told other parents about my suspicions because I don't want to start a witch hunt before school can investigate. But would I be the jerk for reporting her? Speaking as a former teacher, this is disgusting and outrageous. Get her fired. Go straight to the principal, and if he does not fire her, take it to the school board. The teachers' union will not protect her on this. Absolutely not the jerk. Unbelievable. I'm not a teacher, but I have a lot of teacher friends and thought this was going to be one of those the teacher puts all the supplies into a communal pot for the school year type situations. But taking them and reselling them? That is absolutely wild. OP, not the jerk, report her and don't let the fallout of her actions trouble you one bit. Not the jerk. I'd request a meeting with school officials and tell them discretion is a must and bring evidence of her reselling on Marketplace and the 2 lists. The times apart between lists, etc. Bring all the receipts you have. Tell them that you aren't trying to witch hunt this teacher, but that you also do not want to be supplying school supplies if she is reselling them, and that you find it ridiculous that you need to supply new products every 4 to 6 weeks as it is unreasonable. Also, that you haven't brought the Marketplace reselling to the attention of other parents as to not cause an undue attack on said teacher, but you are sure they would feel the same way and they find the new supply list every 4 to 6 weeks ridiculous. You're the jerk. People like you have no idea how hard it is being a teacher in today's public school system. I was a teacher for 4 years until I was wrongfully fired due to the constant harassment from students. I couldn't take it anymore and said some things to those brats that the board did not agree with. Maybe if they paid us appropriately, we wouldn't have to steal supplies and resell them just to keep a roof over our heads. This practice is much more common than you'd think. We also would keep a decent amount of pooled money from the field trip collection. It's just a perk of being a teacher. Sorry, not sorry. One day we'll all strike and straight up quit. Who's going to teach your brats then? It definitely won't be me. By the way, thanks for paying my college debt. With all of my unemployment benefits and now 0 college debt, I'm pretty much retired at 28 years old. I'm seeing a few of the dads I met while I was a teacher. Hopefully one of them will be having a baby with me soon. Then we'll see which one gets excited when I tell them we're going to be parents. He'll be the easiest one to hook for child support. And if he wants a paternity test, my girlfriend who works at the hospital knows how to fake them. She makes over $100,000 a year under the table because of this. She's already told me whatever I need, she'll do it for free because that's what friends do.
You were a teacher? God help our public school system.
Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the teacher? Please let us know.
I'd create a new Facebook account and meet up with her to buy some of the items. That's when you confront her and record the whole thing, post it on YouTube and watch it go viral. Hopefully you'd get more thumbs up than we do. Most of our viewers don't click that like button, and it breaks our hearts.
Hint, hint. Karen demands I bake her a wedding cake at a huge discount. I, 32 female, have a friend, Ashley, who's 33, who's getting married the first week of November.
We've been friends since we were kids, and I'm also a bridesmaid in her wedding. We've been talking about wedding stuff for the past year, as I recently married in April, so it's been fun doing wedding stuff together until Ashley dropped some bad news. The person responsible for the cake for her wedding is moving and is no longer able to do it. She was refunded her money, but now is out of a cake. I'm a cake decorator myself. I was a teacher, and this is my first year as a school administrator, but I've held jobs in high-end bakeries and make cakes for fun out of my house. I don't have a cake business as I don't want one. Ashley asked me if I can do her wedding cake. I at first declined as I never do cakes for large events, but with the date coming up and her not being able to find anyone, I caved. Ashley wants a 4-tiered cake with 4 different flavors and 100 cupcakes, 25 of each flavor. The decorations will require me to order specialty molds, and I'll have to hand paint some gold onto the cake. Total cost came out to $825, $100 more than the previous baker. Ashley was upset and said I was overcharging, but I showed her the breakdown. I used the same pricing system as one of the bakeries I worked at, and it wasn't even the most expensive one. I told her I would do it for the other quote if she was strapped for money, but Ashley then asked me to do it for only $150. When I asked why, Ashley said since she's my friend, she could get a good deal and she could use the money to upgrade the hotel for their honeymoon, to think of it as my wedding gift to her. I told her she was getting a good deal as I was willing to go to the price point of the previous baker, but she mentioned that I did my sister's cake for free several years ago and do free birthday and anniversary cakes for my immediate family all the time. I told her family and friends are not the same. Plus, I had more time to do my sister's cake as I had less responsibilities as a teacher back then compared to what I do now. She told me I needed a friend discount, so I said, "The discount is, you get 0% off 100% of the time, and if you keep bothering me, I'll even add tax." Basically, Ashley didn't like that response and has told the rest of the bridal party what I said, so I'm getting pressure from 9 additional people to drop the price, though some say to half it instead of dropping it to $150. My parents paid for my wedding, so their main argument is I don't need the money nearly as much as Ashley does, which they only know because they saw me using my parents' credit card several times when out wedding shopping. Only her maid of honor, her sister, thinks Ashley is being unreasonable. My husband thinks I should drop out of the wedding and not give her anything, but he also doesn't like Ashley or her fiancé. He thinks she's a spoiled brat. Am I the jerk? Edit. I've only paid for my dress for her wedding. I'm also doing my own hair and makeup myself, but the only money I've spent so far for her wedding on my end is for my dress and shoes. Edit 2. To clarify, baking is a skill. Paying for just ingredients and molds would be maybe $150 to $200, but is already factored into the cake cost you buy. What most home bakers base their price on is the intricacy of the design, the difficulty, their clientele location, and most importantly, time. Then cakes are priced with that combined with the serving size. She has 120 guests. A serving is $475 per person, so $570. Because 100 doesn't divide by 12, but is still a large number of cupcakes, I discounted the cupcakes from $350 per decorated wedding cupcake to the price of a regular plain cupcake with no decorations, which is $250. So the cupcakes were $250. Total price is $820. I upped it to $825 so the extra $5 could pay for the box to deliver the cake, which I don't normally have in my house as I don't typically make cakes that big. Not the jerk. If they all want you to drop the price, they can all throw in $100. A wedding cake and 100 cupcakes for a wedding isn't the same as Aunt Betty's 58th birthday. That's pressure times 10. Not the jerk, and I agree with your husband. You should give Ashley a $700 gift on top of what you probably already spent? No, her entitlement is not your problem. Plus, the harassment is unacceptable, and the longer she waits, the less chance she's going to get her over-the-top cake, and more likely she'll wind up with a sheet cake from Walmart. Not the jerk. Also, reminder on something super important. What if the cake isn't exactly what she thought it should look like in her head? Like, what if the image doesn't match her vision? Do you know how much of a hassle you'd go through to get any sort of payment? Or she'd try to harass you into a refund because it's not what she ordered. She's trying to scam you out of a free cake. For goodness sake, 4 tiers, all different colors? That alone is a nightmare to get just right. Plus, the specialty molds you may not even use again are very limitedly. The cupcakes? Oh no.
because you'd have to ice them at the wedding unless the reception venue has a decent-sized walk-in fridge unit to store said cupcakes and cake in to avoid melting from the heat. But hand frosting 100 cupcakes with frosting that may be different to each plus decorating? Oh no. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Ashley? Please let us know.
No wonder your husband doesn't like her. Never let an Ashley all over you. You'll always talk about Karen, but you sleeping on Ashley's, bruh.
I gave my mother-in-law the wrong address so she couldn't send her granddaughter gifts. I, 42 male, have been married to my wife, who's 39, for 15 years. We have a wonderful 14-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son. My wife's mother has some views that I don't agree with. 2 years ago, for our daughter's 12th birthday, she sent her a book about crash dieting that promised something like 10 pounds of weight loss in 3 days. Our daughter was devastated because the underlying message was clear as day. It was a month until she started eating a whole plate of food for dinner again. Our daughter is healthy. She's highly active, studious, and most importantly, happy. Her grandmother believes that she's not reaching her full potential, whatever that means, and thinks that she'll be on the front covers of magazines if she can just shed some weight. Since she made these views clear to me, I've made it my mission to block any unsupervised contact, and this includes gifts. About a month ago, with my daughter's upcoming 14th birthday, Grandma texted me asking for our new address. Normally, she would ask my wife, but since she didn't answer within 10 minutes, she texted me instead. My wife would have given her our real address, but I was able to respond first with a fake one and tell my wife no response was necessary. I couldn't guarantee that I'd be home to intercept any gifts, and my daughter would open something addressed to her. I gave her some numbers and a street somewhere that I wasn't even sure existed. A couple of weeks later, after my daughter's birthday, I realized that it did not in fact exist as her package was returned to her. Both she and my wife were furious, and my wife amended the address I gave her before. Grandma insisted it was a completely innocent package. Well, the day it was scheduled for delivery, I decided to work from home. When it arrived, I opened it up and found that it was a baton-twirling uniform, my daughter's hobby. Sound innocent enough? It was at least 2 sizes too small. I sat my wife down with the stupid thing in front of us and said it was clearly intentional, which my wife refuses to acknowledge. Now she and her mother are even more mad at me for throwing the uniform into the neighbor's garbage, with the neighbor's permission. Did I handle this correctly? Not the jerk. You don't have a mother-in-law problem, you have a wife problem. It's time for you and your wife to have an honest discussion about how she views your daughter. OP has a huge problem at home if wife agrees or treats their 14-year-old like grandma does. Grandma and wife are fine with giving her insecurities, and she'll need years of therapy. Not the jerk, but OP needs to do something before it's too late. So, I applaud you for standing up and protecting your daughter. For that, you're not the jerk. While people are quick to say you are, as you didn't communicate with your wife, given that she refuses to see an issue with her mother doing this, I disagree with Reddit, and you are not the jerk there as well. Bravo to you for prioritizing your daughter. She needs someone in her corner for sure. That being said, I would make an appointment for couples counseling and talk to the counselor specifically about this issue, how your wife doesn't have concerns with it. You two do need to communicate and get on the same page. Your mother-in-law needs to stop bullying and shaming your daughter, who sounds like a normal, healthy kid. I would go as far as to talk to your daughter. Does she even want to see mother-in-law? Otherwise, go low or no contact. Not the jerk. Your wife is disrespecting your values as the other parent and your daughter's mental well-being in order to enable her mother's incredibly disgusting behavior. You've already experienced the damage it did previously. Your wife is being irresponsible by allowing it to happen again. She needs her eyes open to the harm she's opening her daughter to. You're the jerk, but only for the fact that of course the mail was going to be returned for being sent to the wrong address. Instead of dancing around the subject, why don't you just confront her like a mature adult would do? I'm completely with you. Grandma is a jerk here too. Ask your daughter how she feels about it. Make sure your wife is present as well. If your daughter is hurt by the actions, your wife needs to understand how hurtful it is and stand with you. All these shadow games serve no purpose other than to step on toes and avoid the actual issues. I created a hostile work environment. I used to be a server at a major restaurant chain that you see in every mall in the US, and my particular location just happened to be in one of the wealthier parts of the country. Because of that, a large percentage of the clientele wanted their dishes a certain way. There were some oddball regulars, like one lady who wanted a Caesar salad with no dressing, but 3 whole lemons to squeeze on the lettuce. But 99% of the time, they'd ask for the rigatoni instead of penne in a dish, or red onion instead of yellow on a burger, or something of that nature. The thing about this chain, though, is that technically you're supposed to charge them for substitutions like that. So for instance, if a guest wanted a different kind of dressing on a salad, it might be a 10-cent charge. Or if they wanted Swiss instead of cheddar on their burger, it would be like a 15-cent charge. As a server, you were supposed to know all the upcharges, but because there were like 26 pages to the menu, it was daunting enough to just memorize what we even had. But obviously, no one ever charged for these things, because what's an extra 15 cents on a $200 tab? Not only that, but because rich people tend to be the stingiest people you'll ever meet. We would never charge them because they would instantly complain if you did. And the restaurant's policy was essentially, the customer is always right, no matter how wrong they were. We even had regular grifters that would order the wrong thing and then complain and get an entire free meal every time. So one normal day, I'm serving a table and someone asks for goat cheese on their salad instead of feta, which is supposed to be one of those 10-cent charges. I obviously don't add the upcharge, just like I hadn't for any of the other countless times in over 3 years. And like 15 minutes later, the new manager, I'll just call him Brad, comes along and pretty much chews me out over it. Keep in mind, this is Brad's second day on the job, and he came from the other side of the country to replace our beloved former manager who left to manage her own restaurant. Dude hadn't even introduced himself to me, and he comes out of nowhere to yell at me for not doing the upcharge. I explained to him why I didn't and how it was pretty much a directive from the GM not to do upcharges because of the 99% chance that a complaint and free meal would follow. But Brad just blah 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 some more and tells me I need to add the upcharge or I'd get written up. So when the next table, a party of 7 that had a $500 bill, changes literally every dish, I added the upcharges, which totaled like $1 at the most. When I dropped the check, they freaked out over all the upcharges. Even though I informed them of the charges when they ordered, the itemized receipt made it look so much more severe, and they demanded to speak to the manager. Instead of getting any of the other managers I had worked with for years, I grabbed Brad and made him deal with them. He ended up having to comp all $500 because he insisted I charge an extra $1 for all the substitutions. But did he learn his lesson? Nope. So I did it over and over again to the detriment of my bank account. Most people still tip me though, so that was nice. And I got to watch tables routinely chew him out over the charges. This continued for a month or so until he finally relented, and not too long after, I was suspiciously fired for creating a hostile work environment while on vacation. Am I the jerk for refusing to compromise on custody after my daughter's father lied about what they were doing? I, 32 female, co-parent my 13-year-old, Lily, with her father. We're generally flexible with days, and neither of us have a problem with the other. A few weeks ago, he texted me, "Could I pick up Lily Friday, September X instead of Y, and drop her off A instead of B?" When I asked him why, he said his brother-in-law passed, and the funeral was Saturday, and he wanted to leave Friday. It was in a city several hours away. I agreed to this. I wasn't happy with her missing school, but I compromised. A few days ago, a friend of mine sent me pictures of him with Lily at a ball game from that Friday in the city where his brother-in-law's funeral was. He never told me anything about that. I texted him and asked what was up with that and why he had lied, and he said that he hadn't lied. It had been a lucky coincidence. Their favorite team was playing in that city, and he figured they might as well go to a game to see some of her favorite players. I asked if she had homework she should be doing, and he said she had plenty of other time to do it, and this was important to him. I'm very big on the importance of Lily doing well in school, so this was upsetting to me that he put a kid's game and something he wanted to do over her schoolwork. I don't even think she likes the team for any reason other than to connect with her father, and I think this was mostly for him because I see all the nostalgia stuff he posts on social media about the team. I told him he shouldn't have left that out of the plan he gave me, and that I wasn't changing custody anymore for his mother's birthday, and that he could pick her up and then drop her off a few hours later because she wasn't staying overnight and I wanted those hours back later. Now he's incredibly upset at me and called me a jerk for overreacting. I just want Lily to understand an education is important and to be prioritized and be surrounded by people that understand that. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. If there was actually a funeral they went to, maybe he thought with how depressing it was, it would be good to try and do something to lighten her spirits. Does he have to tell you every single little thing they do together? Do you ask permission before every little thing you do with her? You're overreacting. Are you both not equal parents? Why are you making unilateral decisions and attempting to punish him? A 13-year-old missing one day of school is not the end of the world either. God forbid her homework is not done on Friday. She's liable to forget all that knowledge by Sunday. She's 13. She's fixing to have her choice of whose house to stay at soon. Things like this will be why she chooses dad. You don't think she likes the team except as a way to connect to her father? Doesn't that make you understand how important this is? Her relationship with her dad will set the tone for every other male relationship. It's important that it exists. Your being inflexible in the future will only make your daughter's, and likely your life, worse. You are overreacting. Couldn't agree more. OP is upset that the father is bonding rather than realizing this relationship is very important for her kid's emotional development. She's hiding behind education to lash out at her daughter's father. So now she thinks she is punishing the father, but really she's punishing the daughter as well. Divorce is hard enough. No need to make it harder. Kids don't have the capacity to understand why relationships fall apart. They only know that their family has been torn apart, and her daughter will resent her in the long run if she starts down a path of vindictive behavior. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the dad? Please let us know.
I heard chill pills are on sale right now. Might want to check that out.
Costing my boss hundreds of dollars because he won't listen to my ideas. This is just small malicious compliance to save some food, but I think it's pretty interesting, so enjoy. So I work at a gas station as a cashier, usually early mornings on weekends. Our station has a lot of food in store that's packaged, like chocolate bars, drinks, etc. But since the prices are so high, most of our stock expires before we can sell it, and we have to throw it away. Besides the packaged foods and drinks, we also serve pre-made sandwiches and other pastries, which can only be made and sold in one day and needs to be thrown away at the end of each day. Unsurprisingly, prices for those items are even higher, and so they are rarely sold, and we throw away kilograms of food every single evening. I asked my boss if we could just eat it after it needs to be thrown away because it's still good food, but health regulations just say we can't sell them after a couple of hours of laying in the fridge. My boss said no because he doesn't trust us to not make food in the evening just for us to eat. I countered with the idea of just putting these items on sale before we throw them out so we don't have to pay half of our hourly wage or more on a sandwich and customers could save it for a less price. My boss declined again, saying that we can't do that either for the same reason. I asked if we could donate everything in the evening to homeless people in the area. My boss said no. Cue my malicious compliance. I've made it my duty to now remove everything from the store as soon as it expires and even made a list for my colleagues to look up when things expire. No, we didn't do that before. It just laid there on the shelves until someone found it. With that, every shelf now has empty holes without stock, and my boss's office is full with expired stuff because she needs to check every item to make sure none of us are eating it. I've taken my time to add up the amount of food we've thrown out in just a week. 10 kilograms of fresh sandwiches, 6 kilograms of small packaged snacks, and over 20 bottles of soft drinks, and calculated that over $400 worth of food went to the trash in half a week because we didn't discount them. I've asked a lot of customers about their opinions to implement such a discount to reduce the waste of food, and I just got positive responses. My boss, however, was not happy that I talked about problems with customers and got pretty mad at me. I showed her the numbers I calculated and what we could potentially earn with a discount of 20% based on the customers' opinions I got when talking to them. The majority of them would buy more to save food, and with a discount, they'd much rather buy something. My boss was too stunned to speak when I told her that she's losing thousands of dollars a month to the trash can, but since it wasn't her idea, she'd rather lose the money than admit that I'm right. Am I the jerk for extorting my fiancé for his social security number? I just started a new job and became eligible for benefits. One of the benefits is a free $25,000 life insurance policy. I decided to sign up because it's free, so why not? I put the primary beneficiary as my dad and the secondary as my fiancé. If it pays out, it would pay out 50-50. They needed the beneficiary's info, name, date of birth, contact information, and asked for their social security number too. I called my dad, told him what I was doing. He gave me the info, and that was that. I called my fiance and asked him, and he immediately got defensive. Why do you need that? What is it for? Valid question, but I had told him at the beginning it was so he could be a beneficiary to my life insurance policy. This isn't some scam website, it's through our HR health benefits. He refused to give it to me and was getting angrier and more upset the more I pushed for it, until finally I gave up and just didn't add him because it wouldn't let me add him because the social security number was a required field. When we got home, I asked him what the big deal was, and he basically said that information is his information and he's not giving it to me. I pointed out to him that since we're getting married, I will at some point likely need his social. I pointed out he wanted to be added to my insurance after we got married. His job doesn't offer any, and that I would definitely need his social for that. Bank accounts, mortgages, credit cards. I'm not posting it on the internet. It's so he can get money in the event that I pass. Anyway, long story short, we argued more. He's adamant his information is his information, and he doesn't want to be in the system. I reminded him he was in the military for goodness sake. He's already in the system. Finally, I told him, okay, that I won't add you to my life insurance or health benefits because I can't add you without that information. He responded saying that I was extorting and blackmailing him, and then he left for his brothers. Am I the jerk? ETA. He does have mental health issues and sometimes gets in weird moods. I'm hoping this is one of those times, but he did seem genuinely upset when he left. Thus, I feel bad for throwing the health insurance thing in his face. I feel that may have been a low blow. He doesn't want his information to be in the system? I'm sorry, but I'm laughing reading this. He doesn't want his social to be in the system? Where the heck does he think his social comes from? Not the jerk, but I'd hold off on setting a wedding date. This is really odd behavior and makes me suspicious of exactly why he doesn't want to share this. I mean, you're basically giving him money if something happens to you. When you go on his insurance or he goes on yours, you'll need his social. When you file taxes as married, filing jointly, the social is on the front page of your 1040. He can't run away from this forever. Is it possible that he's not here legally? Is it possible he's using someone else's social? Is it possible he has some record that he hasn't told you about? It may all be innocent, but his reaction, leaving to go to his brothers, is way out of line with how you'd expect a fiance to react to something like this. OP. He's definitely a citizen. He was in the military for a short time. His parents are both citizens. I've known him from a distance since high school, so no hidden marriages or criminal record that I've heard of. He has mental health issues and gets a little off sometimes, but he seemed fine when I left for work, and I wasn't getting any flags that he was having an episode or about to have one. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiance? Please let us know.
Reddit boy doesn't want to be in the system either. I told him to go live in a tent in the mountains.
At least I wouldn't have to be in here with you anymore.
What?
I told my in-laws exactly where my husband was at when I was in labor. I gave birth to my son 10 weeks ago. I went through exhausting periods while I was nearing my due date. I was experiencing discomfort and wanted my husband by my side when I go into labor, but he'd go out every night to hang out at his friend's place and watch football games. I suggested that he play/watch football games at home just in case, but he was having none of it and said he had to attend game night at his brother and friend's place along with his buddies. He said they had certain, how can I describe it, rituals when watching a game, and he can't enjoy doing it at home or anywhere else. The night of our son's birth, my water broke while my husband was at his buddy's place watching a game. I called him and told him to get home and take me to the hospital. He said he was coming, but he didn't. I ended up calling my sister. She lives nearby, and she took me to the hospital. My husband showed up 2 hours later after he kept calling, asking if I was still in labor and that he was almost done watching the game. He was able to make it on time for our son's birth, but I was furious with him, mad and disappointed. He apologized profoundly and has been working on regaining my trust and respect for him after what he's done. He's otherwise very supportive and involved in our son's care. Last night, I was at my in-laws' house for dinner, and we were talking about my son's birth date. My husband suddenly started recalling what happened that night and basically started lying about driving me to the hospital, waiting and feeling stressed out, and standing on his feet for so long without food or even water. I was confused, and I said, "No, none of this is true. None of this happened. In fact, he was watching a football game when I went into labor, and I wanted him to drive me to the hospital, but he didn't show up until 2 hours later. My mother-in-law, who takes no crap from anybody and whom everybody fears, lost it on him, yelling, asking him if that was true, and he kept quiet. She started losing it on him left and right, telling him to sit down and shut up when he stood up to argue, then told him to stand up when he was sitting arguing. Everyone was laughing at how she basically treated him as if he was a boy in trouble. She kept saying, "Shame, shame, shame on you. This is not how I raised my kids to treat their wives. Jordan, you are a disgrace, and I'm disappointed because of what I heard about you." He just took every bit of it and didn't say anything until we got home, when he went nuts, saying I made him look neglectful, a bad husband and father, by telling the family about where he was, and said I shouldn't have said anything. But I argued it wasn't okay for him to lie and play hero in front of his parents. He said I just caused a rift between him and his family and asked if I was happy now. Am I the jerk? Should I not have said anything? Edit to say that he's done similar things in the past, since he's a major enthusiast of football and hockey, but I didn't expect it to come to that. Also, this is not our first baby together. We have a 4-year-old son.
I feel sick to my stomach right now. What kind of father would rather watch a football game than be at the hospital when his son is about to be born? I need a smoothie.
My new Karen neighbor is demanding I cut down plants in my yard. A family that has kids recently moved into the house next door. The border between our yards, mostly on my side, has a ton of poison ivy. I'm extremely sensitive to it, so I haven't tried to control it except when it starts to grow too much into my yard. Even when I do remove it, I have to suit up and wash everything thoroughly, and I still somehow end up with a rash. One of the parents came to my door last week to ask me to remove the poison ivy because their kids have been getting rashes when they play in that part of the yard. I said that I couldn't do that because of my sensitivity, but that they could just get it removed on their side, and as long as their kids stayed in their own yard, it wouldn't be an issue. They said that even if they did that, it would grow back into their yard from my side, and that I could pay a company to remove it if I wouldn't do it myself. I said that I would only agree to it if they paid for all of it. They refused and said that they would be looking into local laws about nuisance plants. We're not on speaking terms anymore. Am I really the jerk here? It's their problem, so why should I have to pay for it? They could just teach their kids to avoid poison ivy like I do. I could understand if I had planted it intentionally, but poison ivy is a native plant that was here before I was, and it's an important food source for bees and birds. Quite frankly, I'm grateful for it, because it's been keeping their loud kids away from my yard who were really annoying me whenever I was out in my garden. It sounds like the poison ivy border between your properties is a nuisance to both you and your neighbors, and you are all making the situation needlessly complicated. Why not just hire a company to remove the plant and then split the cost? Edit. Oh, I see that the real reason you're letting this poisonous plant continue to grow and encroach on your neighbor's property is so that their kids will not be able to play in that section of their own yard. You are intentionally keeping a poisonous plant around that's harmful to both you and your neighbors so that they can't access that part of their property. How completely selfish. You're the jerk. Info. Why aren't you two just paying half each? It's clearly a nuisance to both of you. I'm a little bothered on OP's behalf that the parent's response was to put the financial responsibility on OP. The verbiage used in the post, at least, comes across that the parent has deemed OP responsible for the removal, whether it's professional or not. If OP doesn't care about it and appreciates it as both a contributor to the ecosystem and as a natural fence line, then it seems more reasonable for the parents to remove it on their side and put up either a competing bush or a hedge plant, or put in garden edging of some kind, or even a proper fence. A lot of people are crying, "Think of the kids," but that's really a point of education. Don't play near potentially harmful areas. There isn't going to be an easy answer to everything in life, nor is everyone going to be willing to compromise. Additionally, if a kid is allergic to pollen or a particular tree, there's no exception that the neighborhood has to accommodate that. Trees are not poison ivy, but it's a loose connection given plants are the primary topic. As far as looking into nuisance laws for plants, my unprofessional assumption is that if OP isn't cultivating the plant and it's not an invasive species, it probably won't hold much weight as an argument. Then again, tree law is nuts, so I could be very incorrect there. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the neighbor? Please let us know.
Roundup makes a special product just for poison ivy. It works like a charm. Spray the whole area and it'll be gone in a week.
Am I the jerk for making my chronically late friend miss her seminar? My friend, 25 female, is constantly late for everything. Be it work-related or fun activities, she will always be at least 15 to 20 minutes late. She doesn't have a car, and so oftentimes I, 25 male, will have to pick her up from her house. I work at a university, and she's a PhD student there, and her place is along the way from me. Last time I offered her a ride to work, she ended up being 20 minutes late after I've already arrived at her place. Because of that, I ended up being late for work. She's always very apologetic about her lateness, but never changes. This week, she was supposed to give a seminar at the university, which is a crucial part of her PhD program. She asked me if I could give her a ride to work that day. I told her sure, but that I was picking her up at 8 a.m. and she must be there at exactly 8 a.m. and not a minute later. She chuckled, but I told her I wasn't joking, and she promised that she would be there. The morning of her seminar, I drove to her place and I got there at 7:55 and texted her that I was here, and she told me that she would be out in just a minute. At 8 o'clock, there was no indication that she would come out, and she didn't text anything. So at 8:01, I drove off. At around 8:20, she called me asking where I was. I told her I was at work and that I wasn't joking when I told her that she had to be ready right that minute. She started screaming and crying over the phone and told me that she was having a hard time that morning, couldn't be ready right at 8 a.m. She then begged me to come back to pick her up, as her seminar is at 9 a.m. and she needed to be at the school before then. I could have done it quick enough to pick her up and drop her off without affecting my work, but I decided I didn't want to do that, and I told her that I wouldn't. She was crying and hyperventilating at that point and said she had promised to never be late for anything else again, and re-emphasized that this seminar was crucial for her PhD and that she absolutely cannot miss it without severe consequence. I responded, "Oh well," and hung up. I then went about my day at work normally. I feel like I could have went back and picked her up in this scenario since it wouldn't have been detrimental to me, and at the same time, this was something very important for her. On the other hand, I feel like this should be a wake-up call for her chronic lateness. Not the jerk. You warned her. She also had 40 minutes to make other arrangements, even after all her procrastination. Could you have been kinder? Yes. Could you have reminded her about your time restrictions? Yes. Could you have given her a final notice with an "I'm going to drive away at 8 o'clock"? Yes. Is it rude to be continually late? Yes. Is she an adult? Yes. Is it your problem to manage her time? No. Still not the jerk. When you said you left at 8:01, I was thinking you were the jerk. But when she didn't call you until 8:20, I laughed and thought, oh no, definitely not the jerk. Your friend needs to learn that punctuality in the professional world is important. Also, her chronic lateness should not be affecting you getting to work on time. Not the jerk. I had a friend like this. I was left at the movies, restaurants, train stations. She was never ever on time, always apologetic, etc. Finally, I just started leaving after 15 minutes, which even that seemed a long time when you're waiting at a restaurant. I was also told after I left the first time, I'll never be late again, I promise. But she was. And then the friendship faded away, which was okay by me. My stomach was always in knots, and I was always frustrated and angry by the time she showed up that I finally realized I wasn't enjoying myself. Clearly, your friend showed up at 8:20 and expected you to idly wait for her like her chauffeur. It's so disrespectful of your time. Frankly, I'd be okay with not having this friend. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friend? Please let us know.
I don't mind at all when people show up late. It shows me that our time together is not important to them, and I don't need to keep them in my life.
You want me to coerce an inspector after someone else did the work? This happened years ago. I had just started working as an independent electrician, and one day I received a call from a new customer. He was one of those people that flips homes in lower income neighborhoods. I'll call him Todd, but honestly, I've forgotten what his name is. Todd asked me to meet him at a vacant house he recently bought to give him an estimate for a full rewiring job. He was 30 minutes late, so I was already unimpressed with him. Upon entering the house, which was right after a rainstorm had passed through, we found an inch of water covering the hardwood floors. There was water pouring out of small holes in the column on the front porch. Everything was soaked. Instead of showing me around, Todd called his business partner and brother and spent the next 20 minutes going off on him for not fixing the roof. I'm standing around and listening to his man-baby rage on full display. The whole time I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to work for this guy. His fuse was way too short and his anger was out of hand. I gave him a price, which admittedly was the "I don't want to do this job" price, and didn't hear back from him until months later.
Todd called me later that year. He explained that he had found an electrician from 3 states away and had paid the electrician with ceramic tiles instead of cash. The problem now? Well, he needed an inspection from the city electrical inspector. I agreed to meet with the inspector for him, which I would bill him for. I went back to the house about 20 minutes before the inspector showed up and saw numerous issues. When the inspector arrived, we walked through together. Every issue I saw, the inspector also saw. He pointed them out, and every time I agreed with him that the work was not up to code. This inspector kept looking at me with a puzzled expression. After we did a complete walkthrough, I finally explained to the inspector that I didn't do any of the work and was hired to get him to pass the inspection. He asked me if I thought he should, and I told him absolutely not. I got paid for my time, I got paid to repair all the violations, and I formed a strong relationship with that inspector, who was always lenient with me on all of my future jobs. Am I the jerk for quitting my daughter's job for her? So I, 42 female, have a daughter who's 15 who got her first job as a hostess at a mom and pop restaurant. I was super proud of her and supported her in every way. We made sure she was there when needed, helped her fill out paperwork, all that stuff. First week, she says she's tracking her time on a post-it note. She doesn't have a login to track her hours in their system. We tell her to make sure those hours get counted somehow and offer to speak to her manager. She asks us not to get involved, so we don't. We ask her how much she was offered. She doesn't know. When does she get paid? She doesn't know. She's timid and afraid to speak up, being her first job. We give it time. During this time, she's working 4 to 7 hours per shift. In our U.S. state, there are child labor laws that specifically apply to 14 and 15-year-olds. These state that she cannot work more than 3 hours per shift, 18 hours per week, or outside the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. while school is in session, which it is. She was regularly working outside of those hours, including one night until 11:30 p.m. One dinner shift, a customer yelled at her on the phone for not knowing the full menu. Okay, it happens. Said customer decided to come into the restaurant, ask for her, and went off on her in person, while her manager stood by and just did nothing. This infuriated me, and I wanted so badly to call her manager and tell him he should support his staff and have their back, but she asked me to stay out of it. We let it go, again at her request, until today. She worked today and texted me that she was miserable and wanted to quit. She said that she was not suited for this position and didn't want to continue. I told her she absolutely did not owe them anything other than finishing her shift, and we would be there when she got off work at 3 p.m. In the meantime, she put in her 2-week notice, which was generous for a job she's held for all of 3 weeks, but it was her choice. We get there at 3, and I go inside to let her know that we're there. Her co-hostess pipes up and says, "Actually, I get to decide when she leaves, and I'm not ready for her to leave." As you can imagine, this irritated me, as she was told she was off at 3 p.m. and I was ready to go home. I told her to go clock out and go outside, and I'd be out in a minute. I asked to speak to a manager. I spoke to a head server and told her I appreciated the opportunity they gave my daughter. I said this was not going to work out and today would be her last day. They have not made a schedule going forward, so I said not to schedule her anymore. I got the details on when and how much she would be paid and left. I never raised my voice or was mean. My daughter is furious with me. I explained to her that I tried to let her take the reins here, but she was not standing up for herself, and being 15, I was not going to allow anyone to take advantage of her. She made the decision to quit. I just pushed it along a bit faster. So Reddit, am I the jerk for negating her notice and making her quit? Edit. My goodness, I'm overwhelmed at all the responses. I've tried to read every single one and take everything in. Thank you to everyone who took the time to point out things I could have done better. I truly do want to learn from this and do the right thing next time, if there is a next time. I've apologized to my daughter for how I handled things. I explained what all they did wrong and told her I was very proud of her for wanting to give a notice, but I just couldn't sit back and watch them mistreat her for 2 more weeks. She argued that she made the choice to quit on her own terms, and I took away that chance by telling them she wouldn't be coming back. She's still very mad, and I told her she can be mad at me, and I'm sorry for any embarrassment I caused, but I do not regret removing her from that toxic environment. We've learned a lot from this experience, and we will make sure she knows what info to get before her first shift at the next job, which she's anxious to get, but will probably have to wait a couple weeks due to a planned vacation. I will update when we get her paycheck. I have a bad feeling they're going to try and get out of paying her for the first week when she didn't have a profile in the system. Not the jerk. I'll go against others who say you're undermining her. You're not. The situation she's in, they were mistreating her and it was detrimental to her. This is a situation where parents need to step in, as she was only going to let herself get further taken advantage of. Were it a one-off, I'd say otherwise, but they were breaking the law and allowing her to be mistreated. At a certain point, you have to step in if she won't. I would say to go even further and report the place to the Department of Labor. Those laws are there for a reason. I'm honestly baffled OP didn't already do that. 11:30 on a school night for a 15-year-old? What are they thinking? If anything, I'd vote you're the jerk because OP didn't intervene sooner. Like, yeah, let your kids fight their own battles and stuff for all I care. If they're cool with working a bit more, let them do so. I did like 12-hour shifts when I was 17 so I could earn cash more quickly during the summer, but I did so voluntarily, albeit still illegally. But that was outside of school for about 3 weeks with a certain goal in mind. I knew how much I'd get, I knew my hours were tracked correctly, and it was for a pretty big company, which makes it even more ridiculous that they let me do this. But I digress. OP's daughter got taken advantage of several times in just 3 weeks. Like, what on earth? Don't just let your timid daughter get played like that for no reason. Not the jerk. Gosh, I'm surprised by all these you're the jerk votes. The daughter is 15 and this is her first job. She's being exploited and the restaurant is breaking labor laws. The mother is doing exactly what a parent is supposed to do, protecting her kid when her kid is unable or unwilling to protect herself. And in this case, it's simply due to her being inexperienced in the workplace. Her daughter is embarrassed right now, but her mother just gave her a very valuable lesson in how to recognize when she's being used. Good for you, Mom. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for the way they handled this or not? Please let us know.
I don't think you're a jerk at all. I think you did the right thing. At the same time, I do understand why the daughter's embarrassed, but eventually I think she'll really appreciate what you did for her.
Am I the jerk for bringing my husband over even though I was told not to? I'm 24 and my sister is 27. I'm married and we have 2 kids. My husband is also 24. My sister has told me before that it makes her feel insecure that I'm married and we have kids when she doesn't. Personally, I think my sister is way cooler than me. She's in school to be a dentist. She works very hard too. She works in luxury retail. She used to tell me all she ever wanted was a white Mercedes, and she bought herself a white Mercedes recently. I was so proud of her. Every penny I ever spend comes from my husband. Yeah, I have a nice car, not nearly as cool as hers, but I didn't buy it, my husband did. Same with everything else. My clothes, my house, everything is bought by him. She's a hard-working lady, and she gets to spoil herself. She doesn't have to ask a man to do it for her like I do. And I love my husband more than anything in this world, but I still really do look up to my sister. She has a new apartment with a backyard and invited me and my parents all over for a barbecue. I asked if I could bring the kids. She said yes, but not my husband. I asked why. She said it makes her feel insecure when we are in her presence. I asked why. She said I'm 3 years younger than her and it makes her feel bad about herself because she doesn't have any kids and isn't married. Not to mention, she has a boyfriend and he's friends with my husband. He has no problem with him at all. In fact, they were communicating about what we should bring. I told my sister I guess I'll go alone because I don't want to deal with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old all by myself, but she said she'll help with them and that she wants me to bring them, just not my husband. I said I can only bring one then, and she said to bring both no matter what. So I brought my husband. Her boyfriend greeted him, and he didn't even know he wasn't supposed to be there. I sat next to him inside, and she had me walk over to her and asked if I could just move away from my own husband. I respectfully declined, and she went over and told him,
"Just so you know, you weren't invited here."
Now he feels bad, and he went home, and I followed him. My sister is only a block away from us. We didn't drive. He said he didn't know that they hated him, and he thinks it's all his fault. She said I knew it made her uncomfortable when I'm around him because she isn't married yet. She insisted I bring my 2 kids, but I'm only one person. I can't deal with them alone. Edit. Some people have the same concern I've had for 8 years now. I think my sister does have a crush on my husband, but I'm not 100% sure on that. The only evidence I have is sometimes I catch her staring at him. I'll say something silly like what you see? And she'll say,
"No, I just like his shirt."
And sometimes she'll look at him and say to me,
I wish I had what you have.
But I always assumed she was talking about a family in general, not my husband specifically. Edit. Hey guys, I just want to say, a lot of you are totally right. I totally should have let my husband know, and I should have just told my sister straight up, I'm either going with my husband or not at all. I didn't think of it like that. That being said, here's the real reason for this edit. I took your guys' advice. I called her, I apologized, and I straight up asked her, do you have a crush on my husband? She stuttered a ton and then said,
A little bit.
so I think that answers that. Should her boyfriend know? Should my husband know? I don't know what the right thing to do here is. How do I tell my husband my sister has a crush on him? Everyone sucks here. Your sister is absolutely the jerk for the way she treats your husband, full stop. You are also the jerk for not standing up for him and subjecting him to her mistreatment. Instead of telling her that you wouldn't go without him, so you'd be staying home, you brought him with you without even telling him what's going on. Your husband is not the jerk, he's an innocent pawn. Next time, just refuse her invitation unless your husband is welcome. If she can't accept you all as a family, she gets none of you. It is her house, she can invite who she wants, but you are not obligated to visit her. Her insecurity doesn't need to be your drama. Stop going over until she can act like an adult. Everyone sucks here. I'm calling BS on your sister's reasons. I think she's lying to you. She has a good job, is working towards a professional career, has her own place and a boyfriend. If she wanted to marry and have babies instead, why didn't she do that? It feels like there's something more at play here. Going out on a wild limb, but maybe she fancies your husband, envies your relationship with him, and can't stand to see you together because she's jealous. See, if her insecurities are based on you being married and the fact that you have kids, how come she's demanding that you bring them with you? How come she's demanding you don't sit next to your husband when her boyfriend is there? I wavered on calling you the jerk as well, but my reasons to go with it are partly because you ignored her stated wishes, her home, her rules, and partly because you exposed your husband to her snide comment. And honestly, I'm struggling with you not telling her, thanks for the invite, but no, I'm not interested in attending a family event without my husband. Am I the jerk for backing up my kids when they snapped at their cousin? I'm 38, female. My 16-year-old daughter, Allie, started her senior year, and my 15-year-old son, Josh, started his sophomore year. They've been enjoying school since their cousin, Chase, who's 14, started high school this year, and they've all got the same lunch period. They quickly started to hate going to school when their cousin, Gabe, who's 16, switched his lunch period to theirs. Gabe always smells like BO, says very offensive things loudly, and is very gross and annoying. This is what Allie told me. Gabe also got put into each one of my kids' classes, making class hard for both of them because both teachers are making my kids help him because he refuses to do his work. He'll also wait outside Chase's class to walk with him to lunch, and the kids aren't able to ditch him. They tell me this and send texts throughout the day. Gabe's parents weren't going on the traditional family camping trip. Gabe tried to go with my father-in-law and mother-in-law since Allie was going with them. My mother-in-law hates riding alone since they were taking separate vehicles and invited Allie to go with her a day early since she has good grades and can miss an extra day of school and recover fine. Gabe's grades are terrible, and if Gabe was even invited, they don't even have room for him to sleep in the trailer. He refused to understand why he couldn't go and kept saying that mother-in-law was playing favorites. My father-in-law went behind her back and invited his friend up and also had his friend bring Gabe. This started a few arguments between the kids because Gabe kept calling Allie a jerk for leaving early. During the trip, the kids came back from playing in the forest saying that Gabe wouldn't stop making fun of all of them. They decided to come play cards in my trailer because I told them beforehand Gabe wouldn't be allowed in here because he wasn't sleeping here. Gabe tried to come in, but I lied to him, saying that the kids were eating lunch and to leave them alone while they ate. The kids stayed in there for an hour with Gabe coming and knocking on the door every 15 minutes. After about 9 knocks, Allie became furious, opened the door, and snapped, saying, "You're annoying and gross. Leave me and the boys alone. None of us even wanted you to come up this year. Go bother other people." Gabe looked at me and asked if I was going to say anything. I told him that Allie said the truth and that he needs to leave my trailer. He went and sulked at his tent. My sister-in-law sent me nasty text messages, and I'm starting to wonder, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This kid is a bully, and it's probably because of bad parenting. It's not your job to manage him or the type of relationship he chooses to foster between himself and your kids. It's also important your kids learn to stand up for themselves. Could they have been a little bit nicer about it? Probably. But it sounds like this kid has been horrible to them for a while now, and an individual can only take so much BS before snapping. It's not their responsibility to drop their own boundaries to make him feel better about his bad behavior. He's just lucky it happened on a private family trip and not at school in front of his peers. A couple of things here. You shouldn't be allowing kids to bully or talk smack to each other like that, regardless if it's true. You should be talking to the parents about why their kid has BO. You should be talking to the parents about why their kid has BO. You should be talking to the parents about why their kid has BO and is constantly annoying people. Even if you want Gabe to leave them alone, you simply tell him that kindly. Gabe, go find something to do. Allie and the boys are playing. If Chase is well-rounded and his older brother is a mess, then talk to the parents. As far as the school stuff, I'd be having a conference with the teachers that your kids claim are making them help Gabe. Just because they're related doesn't mean they have a responsibility to his schooling. I say talk to the teacher because regardless of how well-mannered your kids may be, kids still exaggerate. But if the teacher does indeed say they are doing that, you put a stop to it. I'd actually insist all of the kids sit separately. Either way, get a handle on school and don't encourage kids to talk smack to each other. Find solutions that don't bully a 16-year-old.
Sometimes bullies need a taste of their own medicine.
Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for the way that they handled the situation or not? Please let us know.
OP didn't do anything wrong. Gabe needs to learn that once he gets out in the real world, nobody's gonna like him if he acts like that. And I really hope he decides to take a shower.
Am I the jerk for not telling my boyfriend about my promotion after he stole my previous one? Me and my boyfriend worked together at our part-time job. That's how we met. My boyfriend is very traditional, and he likes to be the one who makes all the money in the relationship, which I personally don't really mind. However, that doesn't mean I don't want to not try to be successful. When we both started, we both worked at the lowest position, making $11 an hour. Around maybe 7 months later, my manager asked me if I wanted to move up to a new position where I would be making $13 an hour, which of course I said yes to. My boyfriend was happy for me, but he seemed to be more concerned about asking our manager if he could move up too. I didn't really care then, since I knew my manager was looking for lots of people to fill those empty positions. A few months after that, a position opened up higher up, and my manager asked me if I would want to take that position. I would be making $16 an hour, and of course, I said I would love to. However, something personal happened, which I won't go into detail about. But basically, I just had to wait about a month until I could start in that new position. My manager said he could almost guarantee the position would still be mine, so I have nothing to worry about. I told my boyfriend about the news, and yet again, he was happy for me. A few days later, he said he asked our manager if he could move up too, which I guess our manager said yes to. He didn't tell me about this until the position was already his. What my boyfriend didn't know was that there was only one position open. I hate to word it this way, but basically, my boyfriend stole my promotion from me. After that, I had to wait around 9 months for another position to open up. It's been around 1.5 years since then. I don't really hold a grudge against my boyfriend though about it, because I like that we get to work together, especially in the same position. About a month ago, yet another position has opened up, which was offered to me, and of course I said yes. This time, I didn't tell my boyfriend, not until my first day. He didn't seem angry, but definitely upset by it, because he probably knows he would definitely sound like a jerk if he wasn't happy for me about it. Now, every time I mention it, he just drops the topic and talks about something else. I do feel a little bad because I know he's hurt by it, but at the same time, I'm not the one in the wrong. I worked my way up to this, now making an annual salary rather than working by the hour. It's been around a month and he's still obviously upset by it. Am I the jerk? Definitely not the jerk. But do you really want a relationship where you have to be on pins and needles all the time, worrying that your boyfriend is going to take away your success to make him feel like more of a man? I make 2.5 times my husband's salary. You know what he thinks of that? Awesome. Not the jerk, but reconsider the child with the hurt ego. Not the jerk. You took a promotion. Not sure why you stayed with him after he sabotaged the last one, but that's your choice. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
Dudes who feel intimidated when their girlfriends make more money than they do. Not even once.
Am I the jerk for kicking out my sister-in-law? She left a fake pregnancy test in my room. I'm 33, and my husband, Adam, who's 36, came back from his month-long trip days ago. My in-laws live states away, and my sister-in-law, who's 20, was staying with me since she got kicked out of her dorm. Adam and I got back from the airport at 7 p.m. and my family came to visit. Adam went inside the bedroom and started unpacking while I was in the kitchen with my mother. I suddenly heard Adam shouting my name. He told me to come upstairs ASAP. He sounded very angry. I went to meet with him in the bedroom and I saw him holding a positive pregnancy test in his hand. I was dumbfounded. He began questioning me, saying he found it inside my sock drawer. He asked, "You gonna explain to me what the heck this is doing here?" I was speechless from my shock. As I understood what this might have looked like to him, I said I had no idea. It wasn't mine and I had never seen it before. He kept telling me to explain how it got there if I had never seen it and it wasn't mine. My family heard the commotion and tried to intervene, but Adam locked the door. I freaked out because I literally had no idea what was going on. Adam said he just wanted me to be honest. I said he had the right to be mad, but I knew nothing about it and had no explanation. He said mad doesn't even begin to cover it, then suddenly started putting everything back in his bags, saying he was going to stay with a friend until I call him up with an explanation. He unlocked the door and found my family waiting. His sister showed up, asking what was going on, then started laughing, asking, "So, was it really positive or not?" I was stunned as she proceeded to say she planted the pregnancy test in the drawer as a prank and that everyone should calm down. She was like, "Bruh, chill. Have you ever heard of fake pregnancy tests? They're pretty telling." I was livid. I screamed at her, asking how she thought this was funny and that it was okay to humiliate me in front of my family. She tried to justify it, saying it was her boyfriend's, who has ASPD by the way, idea to bring laughter to the atmosphere. But I told her she was no longer welcome at my home after what she did. Adam took a seat to calm down, watching us argue as my mom got involved, asking me to take it easy. I insisted that my sister-in-law pack and leave right then, and she started crying and apologizing, saying she had nowhere to go, begging Adam to do something, but he didn't. I called her an Uber and had her leave. Mother-in-law heard and started calling me, shaming me for kicking out her daughter like that. I told her what her daughter did, and she still said my reaction was over the top, as her daughter is being naive and as a kid acting recklessly. She said we're her family and I should consider taking her back, but I said I won't. Edit. I too was confused by Adam's reaction and have a feeling he was in on the prank too, based on how serious he was being. Mom thought the same thing, and I wouldn't be surprised since A, he remained quiet when I argued with his sister, and B, he always does pranks with her and sees nothing wrong with her behavior. He actually thinks she's funny. I don't know if I'll ever be sure about him taking part in her pranks. Edit. Adam and I struggle with infertility on his side because of his health issues, so that added to my anger since it seemed like his sister was being cruel and insensitive. Who do you agree with, OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know.
I'd call up those in-laws and tell them why don't they take her in.
My coworker brings her dog to work. She was asked to stop after a few incidents, so she wrote us a crazy 4-page memo. I live in a small town and started working as a night auditor in a hotel a few months back. I rarely ever interact with other employees, let alone the guests. I enjoy it. Lots of time to read and mess around on Reddit. Recently, due to several wildfires and the mandatory evacuations they've created, we've had an influx of long-stay guests who have lost their homes. We also have several fire crews in-house, which has been fun. No sarcasm there, they're great. The issue, however, is this. The other night auditor brings her dog to work. It is not a service animal. While the hotel is pet-friendly, she's been asked to stop bringing her pet in with her. She has ignored these requests. Recently, we've been getting complaints. Her dog has chased people through the building, attempted to bite guests, attack them, and fight other dogs. In response to these complaints, she started locking her dog in the guest dining area and kitchen. Her dog has been going to the bathroom in the kitchen, which is an issue. When our bosses finally put the boot down and told her no more pets, she wrote a 4-page memo about the issue. Short version, she admitted that her dog had done everything stated above, but the reason people were complaining was because of the Illuminati's plot against her and her pet. I wish I was kidding. Here's the memo, in all of its glory. I've redacted identifying names, including the dog's name. Communication post, September 8, 2022. At this time, it would be best practice to leave all employee pets at home due to several complaints and concerns from guests.
While we understand that we know and love the pets of staff members, we cannot possibly tolerate pets being aggressive to guests. September 16, 2022. Dear staff, this letter is in response to the comments above, which was posted in the communication log on September 8th. If you have any comments, please feel free to post them at the bottom of this letter. A bit of background about my dog, my canine companion. She is 1 year old and has been with me at this hotel since she was 8 weeks old. Together, she and I are the night auditors. It's worked out well because she stays awake with me during the shift and we both sleep during the day. She likes all of the front desk staff and gets excited when it's time to come to work so she can greet them and begin her shift. So far, she likes this person and this person the best, possibly because they've made her feel welcome and they're kind to her. Many of the guests also like her, and she has received many compliments from them. She has gone through various stages of development and growth, and presently she's at the stage of finding her voice and honing her socialization skills in a public setting. She and I eat a plant-based diet to teach her non-violence and harmlessness. Her food is scientifically fortified, which I have to purchase online from a specialty company in order for her to take in all of the necessary nutrients to keep her strong and healthy in body, mind, and spirit. I take her training seriously, and the ultimate goal is for her to be peaceful, calm, socialized, and comfortable with all. So far, she sees the hotel as her house and is presently working on understanding that it's okay that other people besides the staff members may come and go through the front door. She barks to announce the arrival of people she doesn't know, and therefore I keep her gated, behind the desk when guests are circulating about. She does not bark behind the desk. In time, I feel she will relax more and more. When everyone has gone to sleep and it's quiet in the hotel, I allow her to play with her toys in the lobby area, and she likes to follow me into the laundry room, etc., while I go about my cleaning duties. Her socialization training is something we diligently work on, and there's still room for improvement in this area. The other night, Redacted informed me that 2 guests approached her on September 8th and yelled at her about something. Apparently, the guests stated that my dog barked at them. It's possible that my dog barked at them, as stated. However, I can't recall who this is or verify this because neither of these people approached me about the issue or came to the desk to speak with me directly. I apologize again for this, as I know it doesn't feel good to be on the receiving end of a complaint or when someone unloads on us. It was also brought to my attention from a different staff member that the man named Redacted, who stayed with us on August 31st, complained to the front desk that my dog barked at him and chased him down the hall. This I can verify to be true. It was after hours, quiet in the hotel, and she was following me around while I cleaned. Mr. Redacted unexpectedly walked down the hall and it startled her, but she also chased after him as he walked away and expressed her disapproval of him. I redirected her immediately and apologized on her behalf.
Gee, maybe this is why you shouldn't have your dog with you at work.
A bit later, the lobby and the hotel were quiet again. No one was around, and so I allowed her to play with her toys in the lobby area. It goes without saying that the lobby is a public area, and the guests should always feel comfortable coming and going as they like, but Mr. Redacted was making his presence known deliberately to rouse my dog and walked through the lobby several times in the wee hours of the morning to go smoke in front of the building. I finally realized that he was doing this purposely to harass her, and I put her in the other room with the door shut. His response was to yell at her, and the following morning he reported the incident to the front desk and was rewarded a free night stay at the hotel due to his complaint. Adding here that Mr. Redacted was charged a cleaning fee due to housekeeping finding towels and sheets that were filthy and everything had to be thrown away. He's a troubled man, and while we can hold compassion for him, I don't recommend he be allowed back at this hotel. As stated above, there is room for improvement with my dog's socialization skills, which she and I are dedicated towards making her a success. It is important that she behaves properly and like a nice young lady while she is here. She's a loving, funny, and loyal little being, and it is a blessing that she is here on planet Earth. She's helped me to tolerate the grave shift hours too, with her excellent company and companionship she provides. I'm now going to explain something that may seem strange, but it is necessary to add this, because it is the truth, and it relates to what happened with the complaints against my dog. Some of you are already aware that my second job is light working. I am a light worker for Planetary Ascension.
Recently, I completed some work to shine light upon the reptilian negative alien races who are present on this Earth plane and who are behind organized crime. The reptilians have demonstrated vicious behaviors, and they are very dangerous towards humans and animals. This information about their presence has been kept from mainstream society. However, things are heating up planet-wide, and a full disclosure event will be taking place in the near future. I've studied these alien races since 2015, and I am acutely familiar with their attacks against those of us who stand up for the light and shine light upon their darkness. The recent complaint against my dog was a deliberate and planned attack against me. The reptilians targeted my dog and used the situation to get back at me, to retaliate because of my recent work in calling out their crimes. My contact with the authorities was on the same day, August 31st, that Mr. Redacted made his appearance, and the other 2 complaints came afterwards for 3 in a row. Noting that the reptilians are reading this post as they are able to track, spy, and interfere via advanced technology through television, computers, cell phones, and other devices. Therefore, I'm letting them know that God is my witness, and I will assist in standing up for those who have no voice. To recap, under normal circumstances, and especially at a hotel which allows dogs, if a dog barks at someone, normally the person would shrug it off, as long as it doesn't continue, which it didn't. I redirect my dog each time and lovingly encourage her to be peaceful and calm. She also has never nipped at anyone. Her barking is instinctive, and with time it will ease up, and I feel confident that she will be more at ease as she gets through this growth stage. Also, my dog is absolutely heartbroken that I've left her at home. I'm keeping her at home for a few weeks to work more intensely on her training and plan on using a vibrating bark collar to better get her attention. Her time away from the hotel will allow the tension from the dark forces to settle too. When I feel she has improved with her barking and listening skills, I plan on bringing her back to work with me. Thanks for listening and for keeping an open mind and an open heart.
Well, I guess now is as good a time as any to tell you all that I am Karen Akatosh of the Galactic Federation of Light, sent here by the Ashtar Command from the Pleiadian system. I am here to spread love and light and to fight the Draconian...
Karen?
Yes?
Shut up. Karen just drops off her baby at my apartment and demands that I babysit for her. I, female 24, am an aunt to my 1-year-old niece, Ava. My sister and brother-in-law live close to me, so I babysit for them sometimes. They don't pay me, but I'm happy to do it anyway. On Friday was their anniversary, and they asked me 3 weeks in advance if I could babysit. I provisionally agreed because I had nothing else planned. My plans changed, however, when some of my old college friends told me they were stopping by my town on Friday. I haven't seen them in nearly 3 years, and I really wanted to see them. I gave my sister 5 days' notice that I could no longer babysit on Friday, and that she would have to make other arrangements. She didn't respond to the text, but she read it, so I assumed that it was okay. On Friday, however, sister stopped by my house with Ava. I was confused and asked why she was here. She told me she was leaving Ava with me as originally planned. I said again I was busy. She replied that family is more important than my silly college friends, and I should step up to my responsibility as an aunt. Before I could protest, she bolted back to her car where brother-in-law was, and they drove off, leaving Ava with me. I tried to call her after she left, but she had her phone off and none of my calls went through. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't leave Ava alone, but I also didn't want to cancel my plans. There's no other family members who live near me. However, I do have a friend, Jade, who lives near. She's good with kids and does babysitting as a side hustle. I called her and explained the situation, even offering to pay her to look after Ava, but she was understanding and said she'd do it for free. I thanked her profusely and dropped Ava off. I texted my sister to say I had left Ava with Jade and to collect her from her house. It's relevant to the story that neither sister nor Ava know Jade personally. My sister didn't respond immediately, but after about 2 hours, she started spamming my phone. I turned my phone off as I was already out by that point anyway. They picked up Ava later that evening and she was perfectly happy. However, my sister and brother-in-law are furious at me for dumping Ava with a stranger, even though they know Jade is a trusted friend of mine. They accused me of endangering my own niece. Many other family members have sided with them, and I've been getting angry texts all weekend. I really don't know what to think. I feel like I acted as best I could given the circumstances. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk.
Yes, your sister asked you 3 weeks in advance, but 5 days is plenty of warning that you wanted to change plans. The fact she didn't call you back or try to negotiate with you and just dropped your niece off and ran isn't funny or cute. She's the parent, and her kid is her and her husband's responsibility, not yours. Welcome to parenthood. She seems to be confused on this point. You don't owe her free babysitting at all. Her antics of drop and dash and then using other family as flying monkeys to guilt trip you are childish, selfish, and disrespectful. So for the foreseeable future, no matter what, when she asks you to babysit, tell her no. Make her reach out to other mommy friends, get into a babysitter group, or her husband's family or friends can step up. Only offer to take your niece when you want to see her at your convenience, or be available as a sitter in a true emergency, like a hospital or funeral home is involved. But other than that, she needs boundaries and consequences for her crap. Give them to her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
Sometimes entitled parents need to learn the hard way. If an entitled parent is furious with you over a decision you made, you probably did the right thing.
Absolutely no overtime. Sure thing, boss. I work for a very large corporation in the IT department. I worked my way up from first level support to the back office team, aka escalation team, like second level but slightly above them. I essentially fix business critical issues that are escalated up from first level to second level. On the back office team, we are a team of 6, and we all have certain areas we specialize in, but are cross-trained in all areas to help cover when people go on vacations or call in sick. My area of expertise is the network team, and another area that I cannot say or it will give away the company I work for. But to put this in perspective, the company I work for owns several hundred retail locations from coast to coast in the USA. Because we are in the last fiscal quarter of the year, the budget is tightening. Not because the company is low on money, but because all of upper management wants to stay within a certain range so they can get their bonuses for saving the company money. So a very strict no overtime policy is implemented. At first, I didn't think much of this because I preferred to work my 40 hours a week and spend time with my family. But there was a particular incident this past Friday that fueled my malicious compliance on Saturday. As I said before, there are 6 of us in the back office team. But on Friday, we had one guy off on paid time off and a couple of call-ins, which left just myself and another guy working. We will call him Matt. Matt worked the opening shift, and I worked a later evening and closing shift to cover the West Coast. Because it was just the 2 of us, we were pretty busy. As the day wore on and closer to Matt's quitting time, we were slammed. We had 4 locations where their network had gone down, and I was dealing with 2 techs on site I was trying to guide to set up new equipment. When 5 p.m. hit, Matt had asked management if he could stay an extra 30 minutes to help me out. Management gave a very quick and hard no and reminded us of the no overtime policy. So Matt had to leave at his scheduled time and leave me with a huge mess to try and fix. I worked the rest of the night on back-to-back issues, and I was able to get them sorted out before it was my quitting time. But I had to work through my break. That is when I decided I would not overextend myself and will follow the new policy. The next day is when the malicious compliance started. I was working the Saturday shift, and since Saturdays are slower, just 2 of us are scheduled. Well, on this particular Saturday, the guy I was supposed to work with called in, and because no overtime was allowed, they couldn't call in another person to help me out. As the day wore on, I was increasingly busy being the only back office person working. The last hour of my shift, something broke on the server side, and dozens of stores were not able to perform transactions or take credit card payments. I worked hard to resolve it, but the end of my shift was nearing. Cue malicious compliance. The end of my shift hit, and I had made 0 strides in fixing the issue. But because we were on a strict no overtime policy, I clocked out and left, leaving dozens of stores down and unable to make money. I forwarded the information to the on-call supervisor, but they rarely check anything over the weekend, so the issue went untouched until Sunday afternoon when management finally saw my reports and emails from Saturday afternoon. The company lost countless dollars in sales, probably in the 6-figure range at least. My phone was blowing up all day Sunday as management tried to get further details from me. But because of the no overtime policy, I could not answer my phone, as that would require me to log hours and that would be overtime. So I did not speak with management until today. When asked why I left work without fixing the issue, I simply showed them the no overtime policy emails they've sent out every week for the past few weeks. They quietly dismissed me back to work, knowing they had messed up and caused this. A few hours of overtime cost the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. Am I the jerk for sending the police to the airport to retrieve my mom's jewelry? My husband, who's 33, adores his mom. He's the only child in the family and they're very close. He'd buy her expensive gifts for her birthdays, but this year he's been stressing out about finding a proper gift for her. Since he's been unemployed for 6 months now, he brought up the jewelry set my mom gave me and asked if I was willing to give it away so he could use it as a gift for his mom's birthday. I said no and thought that his request was strange. He pointed out how many other things I have for mom, which is true, but the jewelry set wasn't something I was willing to give away, especially not to his mom. He got upset and pitched a fit and kept begging me to give it to him, even offered to buy it off of me, but he has no money, so he suddenly stopped bringing it up. On the day of his trip to go visit his mom and attend her birthday, after he left the house, I found a small note that he wrote mentioning he took the jewelry set with him and telling me to not panic or do anything stupid and that we would talk about it when he gets back. I was furious, but I felt hopeless. I thought I was never going to see the set again. I called his phone, but he turned it off after hanging up on me. I called my older cousin who works at the local police station and told him what had happened. He suggested that I make a report so he could help me retrieve it. He then sent police patrol to the airport where my husband was and he was taken in and his ticket canceled. I got the set back and he was eventually let go, but when he got home, all heck broke loose and he started losing it on me, yelling about my cousin, calling him a stuck-up jerk, saying we both were horrible and out of line and that I know my cousin hates him and gave him an opportunity to humiliate him. He then yelled about how he missed his mom's birthday and had his trip ruined just because I hate his mom this much. I don't hate her, but I don't want my stuff given away on my behalf. He was livid to the point where he went to stay with his buddy for 2 days without answering any of my calls. I'm seriously having regrets about it, but what was I supposed to do after he took my jewelry set and had me thinking that I may never see it again? Getting my cousin involved might also have just worsened his relationship with my husband since they have never been on good terms to begin with. Am I the jerk for involving the police as a way to get the set back? Not the jerk. I know it gets tossed around a lot here, but this is actually divorce-worthy for your own financial, emotional, and physical protection. He obviously loves his mom more than he loves her. When he lies and steals from her, then gets mad at her when he gets stopped. What a jerk. Have him move back in with his mommy. This will never stop. Not the jerk. Let him stay at his buddy's forever. Seriously, divorce. He stole from you, lied to you, blamed you, is throwing a tantrum because he got caught in his theft, puts his mom before you, he's jobless and is mooching off you. Yeah, no. Just leave. No per diem without an overnight stay? Well, okay then. Background. Worked for this company over 20 years, all of it in a senior IT position. It's a manufacturing company. Our products are shown in a trade show twice a year. Due to our using lots of tech toys to demo the products, IT has to go to the show space early to set up, fine-tune, etc. And after the customer part of the show is over, about 4 days of that, we have to stay behind and take it all apart, etc. A senior member of IT, me, has to go early each day to set up the space, turn on all the techie stuff, make coffee, and in general, get everything ready for the sales teams to come in for their 7 a.m. meetings. This also means staying in the space until everyone is left and shut it all down and lock up. The trade show is within driving distance of my house, important for later. But due to having to be there at the crack of dawn to open up sales to have meetings at 7 a.m., I have to get up hours earlier than I normally would. Again, important. Company policy, almost verbatim here. If you have to travel outside of your normal territory and leave your house more than 1 hour before your normal time and arrive back home more than an hour after your normal time, then you are allowed a meal per diem. So for 20 years, twice a year, I've been turning in my mileage and daily per diem for meals for 7 or 8 days and getting reimbursed without a word being said. Until 2 years ago. 2 days after I turn in my expenses, I get a call. Sorry, but have to deny all your meals because you don't have an overnight stay. What? I've been doing this for 20 years and never had a problem. When did this change and why wasn't I told in advance? Sorry, just doing what the VP of HR told me. Okay. So I head over to HR and ask what this is all about. Well, it should have been this way all along. Some managers were doing it, others not. So now it's the same for everyone. Me. Shouldn't we have gotten a notice beforehand or a written addendum to the policy manual, since this is not what the policy says? Well, it's the policy now, she says, all angry and red-faced. It's been over 3 years now, and still not in the written policy that is being handed out to new hires. Well, alrighty then. Cue the malicious compliance. Our travel coordinator is not an employee, but a contractor that gets paid on commission, so spending more means more money for her. And she does not talk to the HR other than to get what the rules are. She also approves our expenses based on what the rules are. As long as we are within the rules, automatic approval, and I get the reimbursement by direct deposit within a few days. A month later, I have to visit a customer's location, 2-hour drive from my house. I have about 4 hours of work to do. I used to do this in a single 8-hour day, easy. Not anymore. I let the travel agent know what customer I'm going to, and I will need a room for 2 nights. A day to travel there, a second day to work, and the third day travel home. So I travel there, do the work, then drive home. I do not stay overnight, don't even check into the room. But since I didn't cancel, I get charged anyway. Instead of just mileage and 1 day per diem, it's now mileage, 3-day per diem, and 2 hotel nights. What would have cost the company about $100 now costs over $400. And the next trade show, you guessed it, hotel room for 7 nights, of which I actually stayed in 2 nights, and only then because I went out with a customer for dinner and a few beers. The rest of the time, I went home. I do this for all of my travel now, especially if it's within driving distance of home. My travel expenses have gone up by 3 or 4 times what they used to be. Did anyone even notice? Nope. No one has said a single word. Not one. Hello, anyone home? Apparently not. I've even been given a decent raise. I should have slowed down and spent more of the company's money sooner. I might be CEO by now if I had. Am I the jerk for turning off my alarm in the morning, resulting in my roommate missing her first class? So this just happened about an hour ago, and I need some confirmation that I'm not in the wrong here. I'm on mobile, so apologies in advance for formatting. I'm 21, female. My roommate, who's 20, and I are living in the same college dorm together. While we don't share a room, our rooms are adjacent to one another, and the walls are pretty thin, so we can hear each other pretty easily through them. My first class on Mondays is normally at 9 in the morning, but today I woke up a little bit before my alarm, around 7:45, and checked my email to see that it was canceled because the professor is sick. Since my next class wouldn't be until 12, I turned off my alarm and fell back asleep. Around 9:30, I woke up to the sound of my roommate rushing around and being pretty noisy. I knew she had a class at 9 too, so I was curious as to why she was still here. I got up out of bed and walked into the hallway between our rooms and saw that she was frantically running around trying to get ready. As soon as she saw me, she got this scowl on her face and angrily asked me why my alarm didn't go off. I told her my first class got canceled and that I wanted to sleep in a little. Then she tells me that, thanks to me, she's super late for her first class. Apparently, she relies on my alarm going off in the morning rather than setting one herself. I had no idea that was the case and still don't really understand why she doesn't have her own alarm clock. I tried to apologize, but she was too preoccupied and seemed to be ignoring me. After a few minutes, she was out the door, and since then I've been sitting in bed, wondering if I'm really the jerk here or if she's only got herself to blame. You tried to apologize? No. At 20, she can set her own alarm. There was no communication from her telling you she relied on your alarm. She wanted to blame someone other than herself for something 100% her fault. Not the jerk. You're the jerk to yourself for apologizing when you did nothing wrong. It just gives people the message that you're an easy target to mistreat. The fact that you're even debating if you're a jerk shows you need to work on your assertiveness and self-esteem. None of this is a criticism. I know this from my own negative experiences. Your roommate is ridiculous and entitled, not the jerk. Entitled mom thinks we control the weather. I was formerly employed by a large Orlando, Florida theme park. You know, the one with the mouse? Backstory. This takes place in the middle of July, and if you've ever been in Central Florida in the summer, you know it rains pretty much every single day between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. In my role, I carried a radio like a walkie-talkie. This day, I'm in one of the parks going to a location to perform my job, and as I'm walking through the park, the sky's open. I mean, it's like buckets of water being poured out on you. I enter the location and see lots of people in ponchos and rain parkas standing around. I rarely perform my duties in the parks when they are open. When I do have to go in the parks, I usually walk with my head down, hoping no guests stop me. However, this wasn't the case on this day. Here comes entitled mom. She walks up to me, madder than a hornet. She stands in front of me, huffing and puffing, and demands to know when the rain is going to stop. This is how the exchange took place. Entitled mom.
Sir? When is the rain going to stop? My kids would like to enjoy the theme park.
Me. Ma'am, I can't be certain, but there are storms usually in this area every day.
You are ruining my kids' vacation.
Me. Excuse me, ma'am?
I saved for years to bring them here, and all it does is rain. This is all your fault.
Me. Ma'am, there isn't anything we can do about the weather. Mother Nature is crazy. This is where she goes off the rails.
BS. I know you have some kind of way to stop the weather if you want. You people are just understaffed and can't accommodate the people here.
Me. I can assure you that is far from the case, ma'am. We want all of our guests to have the best time, because if you don't, you won't come back and visit us again. You guys are the reason we're here. Entitled mom gets in my face. I mean nose to nose, and says,
Go forget yourself. Make it stop raining. Get on your little radio, and you better call someone to find something out.
I'm not the most patient person in the world, and I could feel the anger boiling inside of me. I had to disengage myself from the psycho entitled mom, or I would lose it, and my job. When there are really bad thunderstorms, like the one we were experiencing on that day, we would get random weather updates on our radios. Just then, the alert sound for an impending weather update came over my radio. I excused myself from entitled mom and stepped away to listen to the weather update. The person said the thunderstorm would exit property at around 4:35 p.m. I returned to entitled mom and said this in the most sarcastic way I could, knowing I would probably get in some kind of trouble. Me. Ma'am, I just spoke to God, and he said the rain would be gone by 4:35 p.m. Shockingly, entitled mom looked at me and said,
Thank you.
I just stood there with my mouth open, and I took this as a sign for me to exit the scene. Flash forward about an hour, and I'm still in the park. The rain had stopped, the sun was back out, and it was really humid. Just out of the corner of my eye, I spot entitled mom, and she's making a beeline straight for me. I think to myself, great, it was nice working here. Entitled mom.
Thank you for calling someone so they would make it stop raining.
Me. Huh? Entitled mom.
I knew you guys could turn that off.
Me. Still with a huh look on my face, I mumble. You're welcome, ma'am. I walked back to my work truck, laughing the entire way.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.